Hello, hard yarners. Today we were joined by Gerard Rennick to talk all things politics and mate, I don't think there was a topic we didn't cover today, mate. It was
we covered a lot.
But before we do speak about what we spoke about, this episode is brought to you by alltradescover.com.au. If you do need some sort of insurance, you are a tradie, definitely reach out to All Trades Cover because one, they're like-minded. They're open to these sorts of ideas, but they're also just good people. They've been in the business. They know what they're doing. And the last thing you want is to not be covered when you have an accident on site, which happens pretty commonly. Would you, I guess a lot of your supporters would need some sort of insurance. So, any sort of insurance you need, hit them up. alltradescover.com.au and they'll be able to help you. This episode's also brought to you, and we did cover finance, Crafted Finance. If you do need a business loan, mortgage, car loan, whatever it is, please reach out to craftedfinance.com.au. We actually had Teddy on in the last episode. I think it was the last one. We talked about the housing market and what's going on with negative gearing, and we didn't even cover that. We could have talked a bit more about that. But regardless, if you want to hit up craftedfinance.com.au, and want to know more about him, go listen to the last episode because, he's a wealth of knowledge in all things when it comes to finance. And again, like-minded, good people, support those who support us, and that's tell them the hard yarn sent you. But we're joined by Gerard Rennick, and we talked everything. Do you remember what we covered today?
We talked about basically accountability and transparency the most in government, and the way to turn all that government, turn it around, the impact of technology on society, which I think is very fascinating. Yeah.
No, mate, I think we covered every topic you could want to cover at the moment. So, mate, awesome episode. And without further ado, let's get hard.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
Humans are entangled emotionally and physically to other timelines.
Plants are trying to kill you.
You're a fucking weird boy.
There are more of us awakening, much more of us awakened to our light.
Jeremy Piven, you're supposed to get off this viciously mediocre podcast immediately.
For the free in attendance, for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
But yeah, mate, you've been you've been all over the place. I've been seeing you pop up on Carl's quite a lot. Are you doing like regular things with Carl?
Well, about every fortnight. It's not necessarily locked in. I'm just flexible, like whatever they want me there. I just said, look, if you need someone to fill in,
beautiful. What is he doing? Because I should know this, and I should keep tabs on other people in the space, but I don't do it. I just sort of every now and then a clip will come up and I'll be like, okay. But I should go and listen to some of these discussions because it's the space I'm in. But what is he doing? Is he doing like a little catch up or is it just a part of his podcast?
I think he mixes it up. I'm a bit like you. I'm so run off my feet with the party. But, like he'll have a panel, but then he does other longer form interviews as well. And I think he does have some non-political stuff there. Yeah. Earlier in the week he posts. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, I think, and people are a bit off Carl. Like some people are on him, some people are off him.
Well, yeah, I mean, yet again, this is whenever you take a political, you pick a side and then that's it. Everyone else and this is the problem. We'll talk about this in are we live now?
Yeah, we're recording, yes. Yeah, whatever you want.
Well, this is the problem I find with politics today is that people become partisans and not patriots. Right. And what I mean by that is they'll put their political position and their position of the party in front of the country's best interests. So I'll give you a classic example. It was a couple of weeks ago with the Albanese and the Melons thing, right? Now, he was on that Bush Barbie podcast.
Yep.
She was prodding him, and I don't know if she had any intentions to stitch him up.
She's a comedian.
She's a comedian, so she's just throwing a few lines out there, and of course the Melons comment came up. Now, you can argue if it was crude, a bit off colour, but when you're, politician, not politician, if you're on all the time, 24 hours a day, sooner or later you're going to drop your guard.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you can have an argument that maybe his staff should have been sharp enough to pull it off. But the following week, I think it was even a couple of weeks later, I think it had one blow up initially over the Kylie Minogue comments. And then they went back for seconds about 3 weeks later over the Melons comments.
Yeah.
And, the Conservatives are really trying to make a big deal out of it. And it's kind of like, I don't think anyone really cares. No. I mean, I think they know. I mean, I know a little bit about Nikki Osborne just because she was on radio last year.
Yeah.
And, I knew enough to know she was a comedian and, so comedians do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, did I think much of it? No. I mean, I've got plenty of issues with Albanese, but not, over his ideological.
I was going to say there's a lot of other ways to have a crack at him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then they wasted a whole week, and even in question time, asking about his comments. And it's like, guys, you're just as bad. Like no one in mainstream Australia cares about this stuff, right? They want to know how you're going to put food on the table, roof over the head, make the family balance budget, balance the books, etc., right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to feign outrage here. Now, what was particularly bad about this was at one point Hanson had a crack at him. And it's kind of like, hang on, Pauline, earlier in the year you defended employing a convicted rapist, right? And so yet again, you're in no position to be getting on your moral high horse either.
Yeah.
But it was all like, well, we're going to pick a side, we're going to feign outrage, and this is the sort of stuff that turns people off.
But do people want to see a politician let their guard down and have a joke? That's what we want. And then they do it, and then you get outraged. But
well,
I don't know if they are outraged. I think the media turn it into quote-unquote outrage.
Yeah, that's right. So the media are too lazy to do a proper story, or they again have stopped doing what they should be doing, which is reporting the news or doing some proper investigative journalism. Versus the short, shallow outrage, what do you call it? Rage baiting.
Rage bait, yeah.
Rather than actually getting into the substance of the issue. And that's what we've got too much in this country now when it comes to politics. It's the 24-hour news cycle versus, the long, looking at, what we need to do to fix this country up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I think. And I've seen this with Carl, and I brought this up with, I think I had Pete Evans on the other day, and he's obviously, he gets the idea of media slamming you. But people got all over Carl when he apologised for his stance on COVID, to who was it?
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, it was to you.
Yeah,
was it? Yeah. Okay, and he's apologised a few times, and they just say, well, where were you? Like, too late now.
Yeah.
Well, do you want people to change their mind and start to open their eyes and go, oh, maybe we were wrong? Because if you're just going to judge them every time they say, yeah, sorry, I was wrong, well, fuck, they're never going to come over, and we're never going to come together.
That's exactly right, and that's a really good point, because I cop flack for going on the show as well.
On Carl's show?
Yeah, on Carl's show, because he pushed the vaccines. And as I said to people, especially in that first year, like, we're not biochemists, right? We're not, and you want to believe, well, there's a couple of aspects to this. First of all, you want to believe your health authorities, right? You mightn't trust the government, but, your health authorities. And to be honest, I mean, I was always cynical, but, these things could have got out of hand. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, like I say, I was cynical.
Yeah.
But, we don't know enough to know not to take it seriously. So we had to take it seriously, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And Carl's he's not a biochemist. Obviously, I don't know what his financial situation was, but like a lot of people in Australia, they had mortgages, right? So you can't just tell your boss to get stuffed. As I say this a lot, like if you owned your house and had $1 million and your boss told you to take a vaccine, you can go, no, get stuffed, I'm going to sit it out.
Yeah.
But if you've got a mortgage and kids at school and bills to pay, you don't have that luxury, right? And this is, we'll talk about this later if we've got time, but, this is where financial constraints, take away your freedoms, because you don't have the same options. As I often say, freedom's a child of affluence, and, COVID was a great example of that.
Yeah.
Because if you did have, I mean, many people took a hit even if they had a mortgage, and many of them still don't have their jobs back. But yeah, it was kind of like, guys, I mean, Carl's at least been good enough to come out and admit that he was wrong. I was always sceptical that he was on board, because when I can't remember her name now, was ripping into Craig Kelly. If you actually look at his body language, Carl, he folds his arms and turns away from the questioning. And he was one of the first to come out and say, I'm not taking any more. I've had 2 jabs.
I remember that.
Yeah. And he said,
so that's early days. You can see he's starting to click.
Yeah, it was late 21. So admittedly, and that was about the time. Like, so I became aware of the injuries around October 21. I mean, like, I was the backflips and all of the inconsistent advice.
Yeah,
like I was skeptical very early on. And the other thing that people don't realise too is because you were a politician and sitting in a politician's office, we were getting through those lockdowns. We were getting people locked down, locked up, locked out. We had a lot of people, pre-vaccine who couldn't afford to pay the quarantine bills, were worried about losing their jobs, couldn't get to see their loved ones, whether they were sick, injured or dying, had pets locked up, so there was a lot of stress. And then, of course, small businesses who were struggling as well.
Yeah.
So there was a massive toll, because we often now just tend to sort of put COVID down as just the vaccine and the vaccine injured, but it had a shocking impact on people in that between March 20 right up until, say, June, July 21. There was what I call that early period there where there wasn't a lot of COVID in the community, but then but for me, then the step two was when Gladys Berejiklian came out and said, you can't, if you don't take a vaccine, you can't go more than 5 kilometres from your house. And that to me was another sort of, there were quite a few red flags, but that was another big one, because Gladys up until that stage has been, compared to the other premiers at least, relatively sensible.
Yeah.
And I can just remember thinking, you can't tell people they can't go to their jobs. I mean, that's absurd. But that was when they got really coercive there, and it was then suddenly it was like you couldn't go out without a jab, you couldn't do anything without a jab.
Yeah.
And that was around July, August 21, and that was when New South Wales had quite an extended period, I think, of lockdown as well.
Yeah.
But then later that year, the injuries started coming through. It was obvious it wasn't stopping transmission.
Yeah.
And Carl wasn't too far behind the 8 ball, but he did send me a text message earlier on to say that I was doing well. And I actually asked him if I could get on the show, and he said, I'll see what I can do. Now, he never got back to me, and I suspect that's because they didn't want me on the show.
No, of course, yeah.
But then Clive Palmer told me when I took that stand on the vaccines, he rang me one day, congratulate me and try and poach me to leave the Liberals.
Yeah.
But he said that he wanted to put ads out advising against the vaccines or the mandates.
Yeah.
And as he said, the media buyers told him that they'd been told by the federal government that if any of them took any advertising against the vaccines, they'd lose the government contracts.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really, yet again, another classic example of government overreach. But back to the partisan versus patriot stuff, we've got this scene, and this is what I hate, and this is why I couldn't stand the Liberal Party. You had to pick a team, and then it didn't matter whether your team was right or wrong. You just had to stick by it. Whereas my conscience couldn't do that. Like, ultimately, I'm here for all Australian people, as I think a lot of us are. And it's about putting our country first, not our party first.
Yeah.
And that's where I draw the line with, I'll see that now, with Pauline Hanson, for example, went to estimates 12% of the time, and you will have One Nation supporters defending that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yet again, you can't defend a senator barely turning up for work. And then they push the lies that, Malcolm went to estimates. But the problem with that is there's 4 different committees on at one time. And, when you're saying Malcolm went to estimates, he couldn't be in 4 committees at once.
Okay.
Right. So yet again, that was a contrived, it was a lie for many of their followers would have been based on ignorance, because they wouldn't have understood the way estimates worked.
Yeah.
But for those that were on the inside, we knew that was just, an unjustified excuse.
Where do you sit on someone like Pauline? Because I'm so conflicted. There's a lot of things she says, and I'm like, cool, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
And then there'll be another thing I'm like, mate, come on, even simplistic, these terms, what was the monoculture?
Great question. Yeah, okay.
It's just, is it too simplistic to base? Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with a fair bit of what she agreed. So obviously, immigration was too high.
Yeah.
Net zero, I agree with. Obviously too much government overreach, foreign influence, agree with all that. But it's the approach that I disagree with, right? So, you got to judge the individual, not the identity, first of all, right?
Okay.
And so the classical Muslims are bad comment on Sky earlier this year, just epitomises Pauline, where she'll just go and brand an entire, bunch of people as being bad, right? That wasn't good. But the monocultural, so that press club speech was significant because this was her opportunity to be cohesive rather than divisive. Now, I don't like the term multiculturalism either. The opposite of multiculturalism is not monoculturalism. It is actually valuing the dignity and worth of every individual and their families. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all individuals, right? And that is what true liberalism, I'm not talking, true liberalism and democracy is about, is empowering the individual and giving the individuals power over, back in 200 years ago, it was the aristocrats.
Yeah.
But today it's the unaccountable authority of the institutions.
Yeah.
Right? So, ultimately, as I say, look, first of all, there's one race, the human race. number one, judge the individual, not the identity. And there should be, and I'll quote Bob Hawke here, and it won't be too often I agree with him, but on the steps of the Opera House in 1988 at the bicentennial celebrations, I really encourage your listeners to Google that after the show, because it was a fantastic time where all the ships are in on it. And it was probably the height of our national pride where we were really cohesive. But as Bob Hawke said, there should be no hierarchy of origin. Right, because we're seeing this now. You'll hear, and I mean, I fall into the trap sometimes doing, fourth, fifth generation, whatever.
Yep.
The Aboriginals were here first, then we were here. Now there's later immigrants coming through. Well, look, it doesn't really matter when you got here, just as long as you're committed to your country. But this sort of trying to divide people on their heritage as well, it's divisive. And that was the thing, by choosing to pick the line monoculturalism, which then degenerated into this absurd debate the following week with the World Cup, whether or not the Socceroos were multicultural or monocultural, as if it matters, right? They're playing for Australia. They're clearly, devoted to their country. We really need to be focusing on, providing essential services. So yet again, the whole idea that government gets to dictate culture is absurd. Culture is something that's organic, that comes from the community, right?
Yeah.
So, I can imagine 150 years ago, Frederick McCubbin and Tom Roberts and all these guys, or Banjo Patterson, I'm sure they weren't taking advice from the government as to what the culture should be. Or, jump forward 100 years with Cole Chisel and the Angels, or, the great movies we were making in the 80s, Peter Weir and these guys, George Miller. The culture is something that just comes from artists and musicians and things like that, right? Now, what government should be doing is providing the framework whereby we put a roof over people's head, provide essential services like cheap energy. So we've actually got the time to pick up a guitar occasionally and have a bit of a strum, or go out, enjoy a bit of theatre, go and see the comedians and have a bit of a laugh. Right? Rather than dictating what it is that we should believe and think. That to me is actually quite Orwellian, no matter which way you look at it. We just need to get, and I said this in my maiden speech, the last 40 years we've marched on into the family home, classroom, bedroom, telling people how to live their lives, and we've privatised all the infrastructure that provides essential services. So we really need to backflip on all that, get out of the family home, classroom, bedroom, the doctor's waiting room, corporate boardroom through superannuation, and we need to go back to building infrastructure that provides essential services, and just leave the conversation about culture out of it. Right? I mean, and I mean, obviously you've got to uphold rules. So, where there's cases of, the crimes are being broken, by all means, there shouldn't be any sort of excuses for your race. I want to be clear about that. And where there are excuses made for race, we should call it as we see it. But yet again, that's a question where you judge the individual, not the identity, right?
Because there's definitely, I understand what she's kind of getting at. We all want to pull together in the same direction, is what she's saying. But I think just simplifying it into that term it was just a silly decision by her. It just say, let's just pull together. Let's do the Australian thing. We're all in this together has always been that sort of idea of Australians, which is probably why it was so easy to manipulate people to get in the jab. We're all in this together sort of campaign. But we're the underdog. We've always been that smaller country that punches above its weight, and we all support each other in that. When you see an Australian in the Olympics, everyone's like, fuck, how good's that? Someone on the global stage, an actor in Hollywood, you're like, cool, that's great, you're representing our country. But we're also willing to help each other out. You're going to have a barbecue with the people across the street. You're going to be kind. Right. That's what Australian culture is. And people say, we don't have a culture. That's what it is.
And the other thing is too, you don't want to be getting individuals fighting each other. Other individuals aren't the enemy. It's the institutions that we've got to be focused on. And that's what, and this is the hypocrisy, right? Because she doesn't turn up to estimates. Now, any senator, if you get, I was just, you couldn't hold me back going after the bureaucrats, right? I mean, this was, to me, I just thought this was, you wouldn't have had to pay me to do it, you know what I mean? So this is it. It's about the institutions and the unaccountable authority of the institutions that you do want to hold to account. And this is where, to me, she lacks credibility. And I had this opinion way before she got promoted up by the media, was that, well, if you're really serious about what you're doing, you need to be there. And okay, they don't always answer the questions, but that doesn't mean to say if you ask the questions in the right way and they don't answer, you can expose them for that. So, and that's what I did a lot of. They talk around or wouldn't answer my questions. I'd still put it up on social media. And in many respects, that in itself was exposing the ineptitude, and the dishonesty of the bureaucrats. But if you don't go at all, you're never going to shine a light on their incompetence.
Yeah.
So you got to be there, even if they don't answer the questions, right? And apart from the fact you're paid to be there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it is your role. And likewise, again, you know, if you really want to beat the uni party, you've got to start at branches. I mean, she's had 25 years to start branches because it's not enough to drop a candidate in 2 weeks before the election and expect to get, you know, more than a couple of % of the vote. If you want to actually, if you look at the Teals, right, I mean, they are actually a very successful political movement. I don't agree with them ideologically, but they have managed to get 8 or 9 people into the lower house on what you'd call a very low-key national campaign, but they've done the work at the ground level, right? And yet again, I mean, One Nation started branches after People First did, but they didn't, you know, Pauline had have been serious about rolling the uni party, she would have got those branches going years ago, and building up, you know,
established familiarity.
Exactly. And the entire machine, because it's going to take a machine to beat the machine, except we want our machine to be controlled by people who have a say in who goes to Canberra, who has a say in who is on the various executives, because that motivates people as well. Giving them say, you got to give them a say in return for the fact that they're volunteering their time, and that's what you need. You need an entire grassroots movement to actually beat this machine, and it's going to take time to roll them.
Yeah, certainly will. It's not. We've fallen into the trap as society with, you know, we've got social media, instant gratification, and we don't even have to wait for ads anymore. You know, you can skip. So everyone wants action now. They want it done, sorted. Yeah. But it's taken so long for this to sort of creep in. It's not going to just fucking disappear like that. So
no, that's right.
It will take a long process, I think. Yeah. But that's another thing. I see things are slowly creeping in. So one thing I did want to talk to you about, and it's just very recent, is this ASIO amendment bill.
Yeah.
And my concerns are a couple of things. Very broad terminology. I don't know what the word was. It was something about promoting violence or something like that, or I can't remember. But there's a couple of broad terms within this bill, and people were celebrating the sunset being kept.
Yeah.
But these laws came in 2003.
Yeah.
Under the
Howard government.
Yeah, during the September 11 stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so they've since been extended 5 times since 2003. So it's not really worth celebrating. It's definitely a win, but it's not really going to stop it. What I'm concerned about is this going to be leveraged against, you know, people like myself or you or anyone who shows any sort of civic skepticism or dissent towards a government, because it's framed very broadly. And also, even my bigger concern is even if you do trust Albanese, I don't know why anyone would trust Albanese, but if you do trust Albanese government, all good. But what about the next government or the next government or the next government after that you just don't trust, who has these same powers?
Yeah.
Are you concerned?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if there is a bureaucracy I'm concerned about the most, it's our intelligence agencies. I mean, they're a part of the machine that lied about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, they've actively covered up the origins of COVID. You know, that's just 2 examples. I mean, the whole Dural caravan and hate speech stuff, you know, I'm led to believe there was interference there.
Yes.
You know, there was a politician that sold Australia out. They wouldn't tell us who that was or what country was sold out to, and that begs questions, well, which country was that? And does that country have influence over our intelligence services? So that raised that whole question. Mike Burgess, I asked him that question, and Estimates wouldn't answer that question.
Wow.
You know, I asked to get ASIS here 1 year. That's the intelligence agencies for the foreign spies. They don't have to appear before Estimates at all.
Yeah.
I know there's a valid reason for that, in terms you can't be necessarily releasing foreign secrets, but they concern me greatly, and their powers and their lack of accountability. And I was at a breakfast earlier this morning, and as I was saying, when it comes to the markets, competition's the way you keep markets honest.
Yep.
But when it comes to rules and regulations, you've got to have transparency and accountability. I mean, you don't want 6 different. You know, I'm often asked, do you want 6 different income tax rates for different states across the country? And I go, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't have competition in regulation. You don't want 6 different rules.
No.
Yeah, no. But what you do want is effective and efficient regulation, right?
Yes.
So, but to have that, you've got to have accountability and transparency, right? And if our bureaucrats stuff up,
Yeah.
they need to be held to account. Now, they can't be held to account, though, if you don't have the transparency to know if they have stuffed up.
Yes.
So you've got to have that so they feel like they're being watched, and then you've got the evidence to say this is your stuffed up, you're gone. But this is my problem with the intelligence agencies in particular. They are just put up on a pedestal where you cannot question them.
Yeah.
And yet again, with the Bondi shootings, there appeared to be a lot of red flags about those guys. And what's the reaction? Oh, well, we'll go and take guns off farmers and gun owners who haven't broken the law. Look, anything with the intelligence agencies, and I've said this on social media, if you ever got in a position of authority to do something about it, you would go through those agencies with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. I want to talk about transparency in a moment because there's some stuff that's been happening. Antic's been putting up some stuff. But this is Albanese himself in 2003 arguing against these current ASIO laws, and now they're going to further them. But originally in 2003, I guess when he was opposition, he said, and I quote, its provisions potentially allow for mistreatment of ethnic minorities, the suppression of dissent, and detaining investigation of wholly innocent Australians. An ideological struggle in favour of democracy and freedom cannot be won by giving up democratic values, freedom, and the respect of civil liberties. And then he described it as a draconian measure, and that objecting that it could even apply to people not even suspected of any offence.
That's correct.
Which is what he's trying to further strengthen their abilities to do so. And he also warned about ASIO being able to arrest, detain, and use coercion against people without legal representation, without access to or information provided to family members. And now he's actually trying to push and further these same laws, which I question. What's happened to him? Like, has he gone into politics with the best of intentions? Like I assume a lot of politicians do.
Yeah.
Going with the best of intentions and then realize, I can't make a difference. I have to say yes. And slowly, bit by bit, you lose a little bit of your soul.
Yeah.
And you're just completely gone. Is that what you think has happened to, or was he just pushing against because he was the opposition?
Well, he would have. I think he probably meant what he said in 2003.
Yeah.
I think he's been leaned into it now. But this is a classic example of a prime minister that is going against what he believes in.
Yeah.
Right? But then, I saw that under Scott Morrison, when he signed up to net zero. Somehow he told everyone in May 19 he wasn't signing up to it, and then he was.
Yeah.
And it's always the intelligence agencies that seem to be leaning on Albanese. And I don't think they ever really gave a valid reason as to what the risk was if this wasn't passed. You know what I mean? Like it's So what is the risk here?
Yeah.
Because, for example, you've had those laws, but you didn't stop the Bondi shootings. So what are these laws going to do that you can't do now? And why do you need them? I mean, I obviously I'm full-time running a party and other things, so I don't follow the, if you're down in Parliament, you can ask these questions in the committee hearing.
Yeah.
But committee stage of the legislation in the chamber. But I'm trying to work out here what the threat is. Because I'd argue, there's lots of threats around, but, doing the secret squirrel stuff isn't necessarily the way to solve them.
No, especially when it allows to detain 14-year-olds, which is
as young as 14,
without any sort of notification to their parents, and then they can't even tell their parents.
Yeah, that's right. But I'll tell you what, that's an improvement on the original hate speech laws.
Really?
Whereby anyone could be detained, because the Greens moved a motion to exempt children under 14.
Yeah.
And Labor and the Liberals and Malcolm Roberts all voted against that amendment.
Oh, my Lord.
Right? So, I was just shocked at those. So, yet again, there's this Orwellian government overreach creeping in here. And this ASIO bill's a classic example. It's not prevalent yet. But we know in COVID, they had a nudge committee and the health committee, and I forget who it was now, they were monitoring our Facebook posts. And I actually had a whistleblower come to me from the Home Affairs Department. Home Affairs somehow got involved with it. And they were monitoring our Facebook posts and what we were posting as well.
I jest all the time with my mates. I'm certainly on an ASIO watch list somewhere, but I jest. But am I? Are people watching Are they looking at that sort of stuff?
Well, I read this, so take it with a big grain of salt. But it's believable that one of the reasons why Nokia, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Nokia.
Yes.
One of the reasons why they, admittedly Jobs did come up with a better iPhone, I'll admit, but apparently they wouldn't let intelligence agencies get in through the back door of phones.
On Nokia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So look, I have no doubt that any intelligence agency could easily get inside. Whenever I talk to Alex, we always joke about the intelligence agencies listening to us on the phone.
Of course.
I have no doubt that when I was a politician, quite probably now, we're being, everything we do is being tracked.
I'm sure, yeah.
And now, that's not to say they're necessarily going to watch, people like us, but if you ever got into a position of any sort of authority, they could pull something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scrape it out of context as well.
Yeah.
So we go back to transparency because Antics just tried to get the documents released surrounding the mRNA with the flu shots.
Yeah.
And he did this as well, I think, about a month ago, is in regards to, let's see what's happening in regards to all-cause mortality and why that's rising.
Yeah.
And both times, Labor and Greens just said no.
Yeah.
One, why wouldn't you want to know, especially the all-cause mortality? There's been a spike. Yeah. Let's get to the bottom of it. Even if it's not the COVID situation and the way we handle it or the vaccines or whatever, it doesn't matter. We need to know because we would like to stop that. And number two, the flu mRNA shots.
Well, let's start with the Greens. They are schizophrenic because they opposed the ASIO stuff, but yet they supported secrecy around the mRNA flu shot, right? So what have they got to hide here? And look, there's no doubt in my mind, like vaccine take-up rates are now declining.
Yes.
And a part of that obviously is COVID, and a part of that is the lack of transparency around, admitting injuries.
Certainly, yeah.
And here so this refusal to be open and transparent about it is actually backfiring spectacularly, if you ask me, because people are no longer trusting the system. Now, as I did a post on this over the weekend, and as I said, look, we, thanks to Nancy O, she did an FOI on the non-clinical report, the product assessment report. I don't think we needed to FOI, but the non-clinical report we did. And she got a lot of information out on that, the original COVID mRNA vaccines. But I use that as a basis for a lot of questioning and estimates. And I'm pretty sure that, Skerritt didn't even know half of what was in that document when I asked him. But that, was for the greater good. And I would argue asking those questions in estimates, even though it didn't stop the suffering of the people who were injured, they didn't get their compensation that they should have deserved. But why can't you be open and transparent about the testing for these drugs?
Yeah.
Like this is a flu jab that you're going to sell, we're going to spend billions of dollars on.
Yeah.
So it's taxpayers' money to begin with. And then you're going to actually actively encourage people to take it up. They should be able to actually read the product label and see what's in it and all the rest of it. Why are you hiding this stuff?
I don't understand, especially considering after Pfizer tried to hide their data for 77 years or something ridiculous.
75 years.
75 years. And then once we've been shown that, we found that there was 1,223 deaths in their testing.
Yeah.
And I know there's nuances in that data, I think that potentially was VAERS, which they don't necessarily.
Yeah, there was all sorts of information that,
But can we see it? Like, what if it's all safe, it's all good, you're not giving away any of your secrets, you're still earning billions of dollars, it's not a national security threat. Show us. And then
exactly.
And then again, and more importantly, I understand why a pharmaceutical company might want to go, right, we don't want you to see this because maybe you will question it and will cost our profits. I don't agree with it, but I understand it because they're profit driven after all.
Yeah.
Whereas a politician is meant to represent us. They're meant to say, well, no, we still want to see it. So why are the Greens and Labor just saying no? Do they think it's a waste of taxpayer money? Because that can't be a fucking...
it doesn't cost them anything to release the documents.
No.
But yet again, Labor, they're the government of the day, and as we just saw with Albanese, they're controlled by the bureaucrats because they're not smart enough to tell the bureaucrats what to do. But why would the Greens? The Greens have lost a lot of skin on this from a lot of their own followers over this. They're not the government of the day. They've got nothing to defend.
Yeah.
Right. So I, for the life of me, it's a classic example of the hypocrisy of the Greens by not doing this, and just the schizophrenic nature of them. Because earlier in the day, they were, Shoebridge was quite rightly questioning the ASIO powers.
Yes.
But then they roll over with the big pharma
Yeah.
influence, which is odd. But then, qualify that, because nothing surprises me at the Greens. They're all over the place, right?
Look, I used to be, in my head, a Greens supporter.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. In my head, Greens were the environmentalists, the activists.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, yep, that seems like the most anti-establishment party. I'm going to vote for them. That's how I pictured it in my head. Obviously, after a few years of looking into it, I realised how wrong I was. And maybe it started out that way, but it's definitely changed. But yeah, from what I can see, they just, they're hurting themselves with some of their decisions and some of their that one in particular. Like, I'm sure that if you are in the Greens, following the Greens, you're probably for bodily autonomy and for health and whatnot. And that seems to go directly against what they're trying to work towards.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want, and yet again, it's also quality assurance as well. We need to see that they're doing the proper tests. We need to see what the placebos are.
Yes.
This isn't trying to be an anti-vax position or anything like that. It's just, where's your transparency, accountability? We want to see quality assurance about any product.
Yeah.
So it's good that Alex is still pressing on those issues. Like
he seems to be one of the few that's I like almost everything he puts out there, and I like. Yep, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's not often.
Yeah,
I see that from you. Actually, I don't, and I was talking to you about this before. I don't like to align with anyone. I don't like. Yep, they're good, and that's good.
Yeah.
If you say something that I disagree with, I'll probably go, no, I don't like that. But it's you two, I think. But I did fall. One of my mates, they said, "Oh, so you emceed Gerard's bloody his thing, his dinner last time."
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I emceed that. And he said, "Oh, so you're aligned with him now?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I just I emceed the event. I think he's a nice guy. I actually agree with a lot of what he says. So I thought I'd MC that event." And so people straight away will put you in a box.
Oh, absolutely.
And they put you in a category. If I was to have Pauline Hanson on here, straight away I'm in a box.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like you're not even allowed to have these conversations anymore. There was a time where journalism, I wouldn't call myself a journalist, but journalism or media, it was great because they would interview controversial people.
Yeah.
And you'd hear what they say, and people will argue, well, you should push against things. And a podcast isn't, I don't like it. It's not an interview. It's a chat. It's a conversation. Yeah, you can push against, but how many times are you going to have a conversation with a go, no, you're a fucking idiot. Like, no, you're lying to me. Like, that's not,
And that's a part of the gaslighting censorship, whereby by demonising anyone who interviews someone that doesn't agree with them, you're then shutting them down as well.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, we're seeing that with Carl. They're doing their best to shut him down. And obviously too, you're all a threat to the mainstream media.
Yes, yeah.
As well. So they don't want you succeeding too much, because then the establishment, I mean, you've heard of Project Mockingbird, whereby, in the 70s in the US, it came out in the Church Commission, or I think it was called the Church Commission, about how the intelligence agencies had infiltrated media and got the media to push their narrative as well. And I'm sure that's still real and alive today. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah, no
we certainly saw that in COVID.
Yeah.
So obviously the more disparate views are out there, and you can't control bloggers and podcasters, they don't like that as well. They're losing control of the narrative that way.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that he was working towards trying to get, I think it was Meta and Google, to pay for articles shared. And no one believes the mainstream media anymore. They're going broke. So I completely understand why he's trying to get them more money. Yeah. Because if he loses them, or not Albanese, whoever's the government at the time, but him at the moment, if he loses them and his reach and power over the media, then what else does he have? Because he doesn't have fucking social media, and he doesn't have the podcasters, and he doesn't have that side of things. So I get it. But then I'm interested as well. Something I'm not very much across this, and you might be actually. So the data centers, are you across what's going on here? Because
yes and no. I mean, it's always hard to predict how this is going to play out. But I can't see how they're going to build data centres and not eat into the existing energy supply and water supply.
Yes.
Now, I'm about to do a post actually near my hometown of Chinchilla. Upstream from that is a town called Dalby.
Okay.
There's an article in last week's Courier Mail that's they're going to build a $30 billion data centre out there on the Western Downs. Now, it was interesting because they said they're going to harvest water, for the data centre. And it's kind of like, hang on, guys, you've been buying back irrigation licenses to save the environment and put more water back in the Murray-Darling, or in this case, it's the Darling, upper reaches of the Darling.
Yeah.
But now you're going to allow a foreign-owned data centre to harvest water. And yet again, out there, I mean, there is some renewable projects out there and it's close to Kogan Creek Power Station. Now, I've been arguing for years they should build at least another screw or a turbine, if not more, out there, so they could justify building one for that. But so, first of all, where they're going to access their power and water from, I don't know. And
Because isn't it huge? It's something, a few hundred MCGs is the meme that was going around. That's a lot. That's
yeah. And the fact that they're quoting $30-odd billion, like that's a massive expense.
And I don't even know what it's for. What's it for?
Well, they argue. So we've got data centers now. So like even this, so you'll record this, you'll upload it.
Yep.
That's got to be stored somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So all around the world, we're all sharing videos, et cetera, et cetera. That requires enormous storage.
Yeah.
So but then the next level up from that are these AI centers that require enormous processing, energy and power.
Yeah.
And it's artificial intelligence. Now, they're saying that is going to be the reason for the next explosion in these so-called data centers. That's about all I know. Now, it's obviously AI's potential risk to people, especially in service industries. I know someone that's secretary of a board, and she uses, I think, Copilot. She records the meeting and uses Copilot to summarise the minutes, and then she checks the minutes. But she says that saves her
there's
a lot of time.
massive benefits to AI. There definitely is.
So, and that's, we can't be Luddites about AI either, right? Because if we're not in front of it, some other country will get in front of it and they'll end up controlling us instead of us controlling them. You know what I mean? Or it. You know what I mean?
Rinse, repeat.
But the environmental impacts and how it plays into the grid, how it plays into society with the potential job losses, copyright, of course, is another issue. How on earth are you going to control with the explosion and where this can be used? Copyright's going to be another interesting question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to this. We've only got one explicit policy that they've got to actually access their own water and energy, but I'll be honest about that. It's easier said than done, because if they've got to access their own energy, they're going to have to come back to the government for approvals to either build more power stations, whether it's baseload or renewables. Likewise for water, after years of sort of stopping dams being built, they're going to have to get honest about actually, taking water out of, if you're building these things in the regions, you're taking the water out of the rivers.
Yeah.
Right. So that is going to have a massive impact as well.
Yeah.
And just completely contradicts the narrative of the last 20 or 30 years that we've got to protect our environment, because, I don't know how much water is required in these data centers. I'm told it's a lot. But yet again, you'd need to know per data center where the water source is. So it may even be a case of they go closer to the coast, where they then use desalination plants.
Yeah. Yep.
But yet again, that will require more energy to run the desalination plant on top of the data center. But then that comes back to, well, you can't rely on renewable energy to run a desalination plant either.
No.
So it comes back to this whole, well, when are we going to get real and admit that we need to keep baseload energy going, and in particular nuclear?
Yeah. Why can't we run all that energy ourselves? Why do we require foreign companies?
Well, we don't. I mean, we've just allowed that to happen.
Yeah, because I remember asking Basil about this over here. Now he's opposition.
Yeah.
For Roger Cook, and he kind of said, "Look, I'm not happy with the answer. So
yeah,
I want to know why we can't do it, because it's
we can.
Because he just said it's like, oh, we don't want to scare them away. You know, because then who's going to
Why
do it? And I just thought, well, my initial thoughts are, why can't we do it? Why can't the state do it? Why can't it be owned by us? I just don't understand why not. Because can we just
What when you said scare foreign investors away?
like also like the foreign companies that own these mines and these areas that they're mining and whatnot, and all the equipment, and I guess, and they've got all the employees. Why can't we just take over? Is that possible?
Well, I mean,
They would say, "Oh,
you talking in regards to mines or data centers?"
sorry, I'm just talking in resources in general, just in everything."
Right. Well, I don't. In regards to minerals and things like that, I mean, BHP and Rio is there's a foreign-owned portion on our stock exchange. They are at least listed here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, we should be able to own most of our gold mines. A lot of our gold mines are listed on the ASX.
Yeah.
BHP to a large degree. Rio's dual listed. I've never been happy about that. I had shares in North Broken Hill back in the 80s, right, which was one of the companies that Rio bought out. And Alco was another one. Never been happy with Rio listing offshore.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know why we can't have Australian-owned and do it ourselves. I mean, this is one of the things we're pushing very hard at people first.
But also with, I guess, regards to the data centers as well, why can't we run it? Like, why can't it be us?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like, so I've never understood, and I know I do understand why. It's because there's lobbyists and they're saying, no, we don't want that. I get it. I understand why it's not happening. But yeah, I just don't buy that when they say, no, we don't want to scare away these.
No, neither do I. I mean, we've got a policy that you can't have foreign ownership of agricultural land, infrastructure, or residential housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that one again? Sorry? Foreign?
So no foreign ownership of infrastructure, agricultural land, and housing, residential land.
Okay.
Yeah. That's got to stop. Not only on a prospective basis, trying to sort of buy it all back now. It gets too messy, but basically, eventually, as these companies need to sell,
I see.
It can only go back to Australian hands. Particularly infrastructure.
That's good.
We should never have outsourced infrastructure, sold infrastructure in the first place. Like, infrastructure is a monopoly. There's no elasticity of choice with monopolies.
Yeah.
Especially if it's sovereign monopolies whereby it's in the national interest. I mean, heaven forbid we ever got in a war, but you've got to be able to control your own ports and your roads and your power stations and things like that for the national interest when you need to do it. But the idea, and yet again, why it just grinds my gears when I hear politicians say we've got to attract foreign capital. We don't need to attract foreign capital. Capital, for those who don't understand finance, if you know what a balance sheet looks like, you've got an asset on the left-hand side, right-hand side's debt and equity. That's capital, debt and equity. Capital is what you use to buy the asset, right? So we already own Australia, right? Like, we're a sovereign country, so that's our equity.
Yeah.
So in the same way BHP might issue new shares to build an iron ore mine, okay, no one's going to go, BHP shouldn't do that, issue new shares out of thin air. As a federal government who controls the currency, they should be the ones that issue infrastructure bonds to the state governments to the extent that the state government can't fund it itself. So at least when the state government pays interest on that bonds, it comes back to the Australian people rather than interest paid offshore.
Yeah. So and that comes, the gas tax has obviously been a big thing that's been getting pushed. And then people would argue as well, and I think Pauline voted against it, for example. And then she said, well, yeah, but that's still going to get taxed. They're smart people. There's loopholes. They'll find a way to still cut. And I get that as well. Yeah. So I get why she said no. But are we also getting in the way of, like, we want it to be perfect in the way instead of a good idea?
Well, look, the gas tax is misunderstood. A lot of people get confused between company tax and royalties and withholding taxes, right? So you've got a profit and loss statement.
Yep.
Royalties apply to the income. Withholding taxes apply to the costs in the middle, and then company tax applies to the profit. So you've got to clip the ticket all the way through.
Okay.
Right now, the thing that annoys me with the gas tax is yet again, it's the schizophrenic nature of the Greens. They will jump up and down about, and to a degree they're correct, about the fact that Chevron and these guys aren't paying tax on their gas, but yet they'll turn a blind eye to Pfizer and Meta and Facebook and all these other foreign multinationals that shift their profits offshore and pay no tax here. So if you're going to get angry about this, get angry about all the multinationals doing it, not just the gas companies.
Yes.
Because to be fair to the gas companies, it cost $88 billion to build Gorgon and Wheatstone, right? Meta they did not build the undersea cables to connect Australia to Ireland, right? Or Pfizer, it cost them nothing to sell those drugs here, right? So to be fair to the gas companies, they did sink $88 billion that they have to recoup.
Okay.
Right. And remember, that's a depreciating asset. It's not like they bought land for $88 billion.
Yeah.
So that when that gas field runs out, that's worthless, that first $88 billion they invested. Right. But what you need to do, and we've got a policy, we have a 10% royalty on the sale. Any interest, revenue, royalties or rent they shift offshore, we will have a 25% withholding tax on those profits sent offshore. If they then, when they make money, what's left at the bottom, they'll make a profit. We'll have a 30% company, 30%, which is the company tax rate now. Now, most other businesses do not pay royalties on sales. They just pay the company profit, company tax on the profit at the bottom. The oil and gas and mining companies do actually pay royalties on the top line as well.
Okay.
So where Chevron, they got caught out about 5 or 6 years ago by the tax office. They were doing intercompany transactions whereby they borrowed debt at, they lent money into Australia, and Australia. So Chevron in the States raised the money at 2% interest cost, and then they charged Australia 9% interest. And they got caught out by the ATO because they literally admitted it in an email.
Okay.
So they weren't doing proper transfer pricing, and they got picked up. So that was wrong.
Okay.
But that's a complex issue. But long story short, we should be taxing all multinationals on any profits shifted offshore, not just the oil and gas companies. Because to be fair to them, like even here in Western Australia, like it's one thing to go and build a gold mine because you put a drill down, you're not offshore, you're onshore.
Yep.
You might be out in the heat and whatever, but you can get a plane fly over, pick the magnetic resonance or whatever, and you stick a drill down, right? You got to go offshore. That gas is sitting a couple of kilometres. The seabed's a couple of kilometres deep. Then the gas is a couple of kilometres after that. So to build an offshore a gas rig and then transport it either back onto onshore and then before shipping it offshore, it is a lot of capital intensive, very capital intensive. So it is very high risk.
Yeah. Could it be one of those things though? We go backwards to go forwards. So if we were to purchase these, like an oil rig, purchase everything. We take everything. It's going to be at this price, but then long term we're going to recoup that and then some.
Well, I think our policy. I think clipping the ticket. So remember, we get 30% of all profits up front, right?
Yeah.
So as I've said to people, like we do clip the ticket on, but we're not taking any risk. We're letting the price. So I actually don't think government should be involved in oil and gas exploration because it is extremely high risk.
Okay.
Right. We can't even get the government to build Snowy Hydro 2. Right, which is one.
Good point. Yeah.
But it is really like mining exploration is very, very high risk.
Yeah. Okay.
What we should be doing, and this is what we did in what we used to do, we built in Queensland, and we do well. Actually, if you want to get angry as a Western Australian about what's going on, you should have got angry over the fact that BHP and Rio were allowed to own their railway lines. Okay, you should have been. You should have been charged. That should have been owned by the state. And you should have been charging them $5 or $10 a tonne to use the railway line. Now, that's what we did in Queensland. Right? So Queensland was like in the 1950s, Queensland was a lot like Victoria was today, a bit of a basket case of its economy after 30, 40 years of Labor.
Yep.
So when the Nicholson government and then the Bjelke Petersen government got in, they opened up the coal basin deposits in central Queensland. But what they did was they got BHP Mitsubishi to actually build those railway lines. They they lent the money to BHP Mitsubishi. I forget how it worked, but long story short, the Queensland public ended up owning the railway lines, and we ended up charging BHP to use those coal trains. And then the money from the central Queensland coal trains paid for the train lines in the city, right? But the thing was, we clipped the ticket on royalties, freight charges, and port charges.
Yep.
In WA, you've missed out on the freight charges from those iron ore trains, and that's where, if you like, and I say this to a lot of people, that's where you should be, grinding your gears about. From the point of view of Western Australians.
And the iron ore, now it could have changed. It's been a while since we talked about this. Corey White has brought this up like about 5 years ago, that the royalty on iron ore in particular, it wasn't a percentage, it was a cent. I think it was a certain,
$5 a tonne, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it hadn't improved since the 70s or something.
I mean, yet again, I would argue with your royalty structure on iron ore, it should be based on pricing.
Yes.
So once it got to sort of like super profits level, instead of charging $5 a tonne or whatever it is now, you could have capped
a percentage.
high percentage on those super profits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that
Yeah.
was the argument. He's like, well, we're stealing from our future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just seems to be
Absolutely.
another
Yeah.
miss.
And building, and this is the thing with those bulk commodities. I mean, the story of I think it was Lang Hancock and those guys when they were flying over the Pilbara. Like the way you look for metals is you look for a spike in the magnetic resonance.
Okay.
And they were flying. I'll stand to be corrected on this. My dad tells the story, but they couldn't see a spike. But they knew the iron ore was there because they could, walk down, tap the ground. It was all, and it turns out just about the reason why there was no spike because it was all magnetic.
Oh,
Right, it was all iron ore.
okay,
right?
yeah.
But I would argue that, and this is, and we can talk about this as the cows come home, but we should be clipping the ticket on those super profits, and bulk commodities is much easier to mine.
Now, are they declaring profits though, or are they very clever with their
So
deductions?
good question. So BHP and Rio and Fortescue for a while set up those marketing hubs in Singapore because they were shifting profits offshore. They were getting Singapore to market the iron ore to China, right? And then they were paying Singapore profits, like marketing fees, and that's how they were shifting profits offshore. Luckily, the ATO's clamped down on that.
Okay.
But the other thing where I've got a real beef with is with the billionaires who aren't actually adding value to those raw commodities. Now, Gina Rinehart's a very wealthy woman. I'm led to believe she's worth around 30 billion. Andrew Forrest is another guy worth billions, and yet instead of he's getting subsidies for green energy in Queensland, for example, which is just absurd. They, instead of buying, and I ran into a guy in Northern New South Wales earlier this year at a coffee shop who recognised me, and he was a farmer from the Liverpool Plains, and I'm led to believe that Hancock's buying land around there, and Twiggy Forrest is buying agricultural land.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be buying up agricultural land from other farmers and making it too expensive for farmers to buy. They're pushing the other farmers out. They should be actually adding value to that iron ore they're exporting. We should make them, for every 100 tonnes they export, 5% should be kept here as a reservation policy and turned into steel. Just like we do with gas, we should be doing it with iron ore, coking coal, thermal coal, where we use that to turn it into steel. Because those guys have got tens of billions of dollars worth of wealth, and that's come from Australia. People often refer to Gina as an entrepreneur. I disagree. I think she was just gifted iron ore mines. Yeah, she had to do some hard work to get it. But bulk commodity mining is not that hard. Okay. Right? Like, it's not like the offshore where you're drilling for gas and it's really hit and miss, and you're out in the rough oceans and that. Like, it's literally in Western Australia, it's at the surface. You got what they call direct shipping ore, and outcrops of it everywhere. So you've made a lot of money out of that. You've got an obligation to this country to actually rebuild these steel factories and bring back manufacturing, rather than jump over into another, primary industry of agriculture where you're just pushing out, smaller Australians, smaller businesses. Go and actually add value because you've got the coin to do it.
Small businesses have certainly been shafted in a lot of ways. For me, and I've said this a few times on the podcast, it constantly feels like our governments are using us as their chief source of revenue, as opposed to infrastructure, agriculture, resources, tourism, all these other things to be able to generate income and wealth for our country. They're coming at us. I use the AI flock cameras as an example. They're taking photos of us while we're driving, and they're generating, I think it was an extra 17,000 fines in their first month over here for seatbelt infringements, which it was 31,000 fines in the first month extra, generating an extra $16 or $17 million of fines for our local state government. And you're like, well, we're already in a cost of living crisis. Your answer here is to put more pressure on us, to put financially burden us with more fines where we're just making a mistake. Like we got one with my daughter. Instead of it being over her shoulder, it was under her arm. $540 fine, 4 demerits, or something ridiculous. But my point is just like we constantly feel like we're under surveillance. We constantly feel like our governments are coming at us for their revenue. And at a point, it's going to get a time where people have had enough. And either they just stop complying or they get violent and it gets worse. And I don't think they're setting up a very, what do they like to call it? Harmonious society. What's the word?
Cohesive.
Cohesive, yeah. It's not very socially cohesive.
Yeah, and so yet again, I mean, this capital flight. So there's there's three ways to solve like a lot of these issues. Number one is, first of all, capital flight, and we just touched on it with multinationals shifting profits offshore and not being taxed. Okay, we've got to increase the tax rate on profits sent offshore, and we've got to make sure that rate's higher than the rates here. Because if there's a difference, what we call an arbitrage, whereby the tax rate on offshore profits is lower than what it is here in Australia, which is what it is, the multinationals shift their profits offshore.
Yes.
Right. So, this is what Chevron did when they basically charged 9% interest. They did that because they knew that the interest paid offshore wasn't taxed. Okay. And there's actually a section in the Tax Act that says when you lend money into Australia, you don't, I mean, you've got to comply with a couple of conditions, but there's no withholding tax on that. So they get a tax deduction for it here, right? Save 30 cents in a dollar and there's nothing on the way out. Right. Yet again, how is that fair?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what Chevron are up to. But so first of all, stop the capital flight out of this country. And they use the increased revenue raised from that tax to lower taxes here. Step one, build more infrastructure like we used to. But WA is not so bad, but the eastern states where we privatised all our infrastructure back in the 90s and early 2000s, that's killing state governments today. But you will generate more income from your infrastructure. And like I pointed out with the Bowen Basin, income from royalties, income from freight charges on the trains, income from ports. Yet again, we rinsed and repeated that with the bauxite deposits up in Weipa. And Joe and Leo Helscher were very clever there. They said Comalco, you can't export bauxite. You can only export aluminium and alumina. So that meant we had to add value to the bauxite before we exported it in Queensland, hence the creation of the smelters in Gladstone.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we should be doing, the iron ore and coke and coal here. You can't shift it offshore, or at least a percentage of it, until you add value to it here. Turn it into real steel and sell it for $500 a tonne instead of $100 a tonne. Right? Most factories today, especially manufacturing factories, are largely automated. So the argument that we can no longer compete with foreign labour is redundant. Right? All we got to do is drive down the cost of energy, get rid of payroll tax, and we can do that by charging stamp duty on share trading again, which is our market's 50% traded by the stock. 50% of the stock market's traded by foreigners who, yet again, and a lot of them are expat Aussies that live offshore because they don't have to pay tax, capital gains tax either, right? Yeah. So we're encouraging not just capital flight, but capital labour, our own people to go offshore.
Yeah.
Right. So yet again, we're just putting a knife into our own heart.
Oh yeah, people are wanting to leave.
Exactly.
It's getting to a point where people are done.
Yeah.
I've never ever heard anyone talk like that about Australia.
Yeah.
We've been we get called the lucky country. We
are the lucky country.
Yeah.
And yet we're squandering it. And it's just, it's just weak politicians who don't have the vision, don't have the solution, and don't have the knowledge of how we got into this mess.
Yeah.
But yet again, back to how we fix it, increase withholding taxes, build the infrastructure that's going to generate recurring revenue.
Yes.
Because all that recurring revenue from royalties, freight charges, port charges pays for the recurring costs of schools and hospitals. And the third thing is to actually streamline our bureaucracy. Right, we don't need to educate. So we've got duplications of bureaucrats between state and federal governments, and sometimes even councils. I don't think we need 3 levels of government in this country to begin with. But at the very least, if you couldn't get rid of state governments, at least get rid of 2 education departments, 2 water environment departments, water departments, health departments, you name it. Basically lower the cost of government, become more efficient and more effective. So there's 3 solutions to turn us around, the economy around.
Yeah.
And that building infrastructure, not only will it provide revenue to state governments, but if you increase the supply of power stations, dams, build better roads, it's actually driving down the cost of energy, driving down the cost of water, food. You're actually making it more competitive for business. Yeah.
And these seem very common sense, ideas. But at this point, they're not going to happen because the people who are currently in power, the Labor government in particular, they would have to make the change themselves, and that they're paid, or they're donors and what are other people who profit from it. So how can we hope for a system to change if the people who are, the source of the problem are the ones in power? That means they have to.
Well, Cameron,
it's a paradox.
Cameron, the hero you're looking for is looking right back at you.
I agree. Yeah.
The world is run by those who turn up.
Yeah.
And democracy is only as strong as how active people get involved in that democratic process.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I think Labor Party has 50,000 members, Coalition's 40, maybe One Nation might be 50 now. Other minor parties, maybe, 40, 50,000 people. So there's probably around 200,000 people tops in a political party in this country out of 28 million.
Yeah.
So less than 1% of people are actually actively involved in politics. Now, there's probably a couple of million sitting there whinging and bitching about how bad politics is in this country.
Yeah.
But, not many people are actually getting involved. And so, you can't complain if you're not going to, and what was that saying, about democracy? If you don't get involved, you end up being ruled by people, who are inferior to you. That might be slightly snobbish, but, there's a certain element of truth in that. So, yet again, we've got to get active in political parties. And obviously that's what I'm trying to do with People First.
Yeah, because you are on a membership. So are you not taking any donations or not?
We take donations on the website. We don't solicit donations. We don't have a call centre where we ring up. But obviously, people want to donate, they can donate.
Okay.
And we won't. Well, we'll get the 4% in some seats, but not a lot of seats. So we don't get necessarily reimbursed by the taxpayer either at this stage.
Yes.
But our membership's $50 a year. But yet again, this is what we're trying to do: is just build up an active grassroots movement. Now, it's a good time to raise this because it's almost a year since that March for Australia rally this time last year. Now, it was reported 200,000 people marched in that rally across Australia. If that 200,000 people had spent money, so, assuming it cost them $50 for parking in the city, a bit of food, water bottle, something, bit of petrol to get to the event, let's assume it's $50. If that 200,000 people had joined one party, put $50 in, that's $10 million they could have raised. That could have been used to fund the next election campaign.
Yeah.
Right. Likewise.
Because it costs how much to nominate for?
Well, $2,000
each.
For each electorate.
Yeah.
So that's $300,000 if you want to run a candidate in every seat.
Wow.
But then, you'll need
marketing,
3,000 for call flutes, 3,000 how to vote cards, 2,000 for shirts. So you're looking about bare bones of around 10,000 a seat. That's before any advertising, any social media.
And how many seats?
150. So you'd be looking at 1.5 million.
Wow.
If you wanted to do a proper bare bones campaign across the country.
Is that something you're hoping to do, Phil?
We probably won't be able to afford it. So, I've got no secret here. We've got about $700,000 in the bank after, being around for 2 years. So we might get to $1 million by 2028.
Okay.
So unless we get a bigger donor.
Yeah.
We'll be able to, and some candidates will put in a bit extra.
And how does that get you in the Senate? Because I don't understand all that. I do to a point, but
yeah, so the Senate then's another thing altogether. So the senators come from the state. So you vote twice when you go to vote. You vote once in the lower house on the green ticket, and then you vote again on the big long white Senate ticket.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's fair to say the green ticket leads to the white ticket. I didn't realise this until last time either because we didn't run in all the seats in Queensland either.
Okay.
But I had people texting me saying, Gerard, I can't see your name on the green ticket. And which is the lower house. And I'd have to say, no, I'm in the upper house. We're on the white ticket.
Yeah.
And of course, the white ticket for the Senate, as you know, it's huge.
Huge.
Heaps of people.
And you can miss it.
Party. You can miss it. So that's another. Yeah. So yet again, you got to have at least 2 people to form in a party to get above the line. So that's at least 12 senators for the mainland. So you're looking at another 12 Senate candidates. So that's another $2,000 each, plus probably $10,000 there. So there's another quarter. 12 by 10, another 125, 150 grand on there on top of that as well. So it is expensive to just even turn up in an election.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The registration fee for the lower house used to be about $500. I think it was 20 years ago. I'll stand to be corrected on that. But they keep jacking that up as well to make it harder for people to even feel like running. It's an expensive process, but yet again, this is why we need a democratic, active grassroots membership to get out there. And if we look at the Teals, they've shown it can work. So instead of Clive spending $50 million on billboards about himself, you're better off paying people $40 to go door knocking with the candidate or letterbox dropping.
Yeah.
And I look at all that energy wasted on marches. All you're doing is shouting at the clouds like an angry man, waving your fist at the clouds. That's not going to solve the problem.
What do you do if you're presented with Cameron Branch?
Yeah.
Runs the Hard Yarns podcast, and I have a huge amount of money. What a beautiful fantasy we live in. And I come and I go, right, I love what you're doing. Here's $1 million.
Yeah.
Do you then go to me, all right, well, I don't want you trying to influence me. I don't want you trying to would you have these conversations up front?
I would. Yeah. And I'm glad you raised that because that's now it's that influence is real. There's no question about that. So if you donated $1 million to us and you called me, I'd call you back. But then again, most people in People First will vouch for this. I give every member a call once a year.
Yeah, right.
So that, we all get calls, and most people, and I even on my emails, I put out my own phone number, and I generally call people back. If I can't do it straight away, I've got to call back from the party after this interview.
Awesome.
So I try and call everyone, right?
Yep.
Now, you won't always get that in political parties.
Yeah.
But what I wouldn't do is if you then to turn around and say, I'm in Queensland, you're in WA. Oh, Gerard, I'm having a 70th birthday party. Can you come to my birthday party? It's highly likely I'd say no. Right? Now, I wouldn't necessarily rule it out, because what I might do is, I've got to go to WA anyway. If I can do a couple of things around that, I might go to your birthday party. But I wouldn't be expecting you to follow me around and, go to every event.
Yeah.
And this is my problem with Gina donating directly to Pauline. I don't actually have a problem Gina giving the money to One Nation, but it needs to be, here's your 10 million or whatever, then you walk away. I have issues with it now because she's come out in Townsville and said we should give free land to foreigners and tax breaks to foreigners.
I had concerns around that as well.
Yeah.
I could be so wrong. Just because she's a billionaire, does that make her a bad person? I don't know.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It doesn't. And because she inherited that, the access to Roy Hill doesn't necessarily make her a bad person either.
And to be fair, a couple of things she said, I've gone,
I don't necessarily.
But then there's a couple of
disagree.
things I'm like,
So yet again though, but when she says about the Elon Musk thing,
Yeah.
well, hang on, she just bought shares in Starlink a week or two before. Then she's asking for tax breaks and free land. She's basically, it's bad enough offering it to any foreigner.
Yeah.
But she had an interest in that. So she's basically out there. She probably didn't even realise what she was doing when she said it or think it through. She's basically lobbying for a tax break for herself as well. Right? So that's my opinion changed on whether or not she should be giving, because I've got real concerns when she's just so explicit about it as well. It's like she was just water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
But the other issue I have is I know that, she's held fundraising events. So Pauline will fly down to Tasmania or whatever to do a fundraising event, but won't go to estimates.
Yeah.
Right? So hang on. If you're not going to go to Parliament, and then the other thing is she flew Pauline over last year to Florida for the CPAC event, right, on her jet throughout 2 weeks of sitting. Right? Now, I've got a real problem with Pauline having the energy to go to the United States on a billionaire's jet, but not turn up for sitting weeks. Right? That's me. And then the next sitting week after that, she pulls the Burke stunt. Right?
Yeah. Look, some of these things are just,
the Burke stunt is in bad taste. I don't necessarily have a problem with the full Burker either. I don't necessarily completely disagree with that. But the way you go about it. But just in return to that, she moved that motion through formal business, not general business. Formal business, you don't get to debate things. You can seek leave to speak for 1 minute. She knew she was going to be denied that. Either that or she didn't understand Senate procedures, which, given that she'd been in the Senate for 10 years, is pretty bad. Had she moved it later that day through general business, she could have spoke about it for 10 minutes, right? Instead, she plays the victim, then puts the burqa on and walks back into the Senate.
Yeah.
Right. So she deceived her own followers, the fact that she was going, being censored. And it's kind of like, you're not censored at all. You get a gig on Sky News every night. Your daughter gets a gig. Your chief of staff, James Ashby, gets a gig on Sky News. No one gives you, there's no other politician that gets as much airplay as Pauline. And then she turns around and plays the victim about being censored, right?
Well, when you're getting that much coverage, then I start to raise an eyebrow. I'm like,
yet again, that's a fair point as well. But so back to the donation side of it, and I guess that's my concern, is whereby it feels like with Gina, there's strings attached.
Yeah, okay.
Like I know that there's been other big donors that have given to people before too. It's like, and to be fair, like, what's his name? Richard Pratt, is it? The paper guy? I think it's the Pratt. Like, he gets Albanese to go to his birthday parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yet again, like, if you want to donate money, but no strings attached, and don't start dragging politicians around to go to this birthday party or that birthday party.
Yeah.
Like, that's just indulgent.
Yep.
Right? And you don't really care about your people, because you'd know if they were politicians that they're run off their feet anyway. So asking them to go to a personal event, to me, is just, you're just, that's just ego driven.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
Look, it's a vexed issue, because it's hard to campaign without money.
Yeah.
And then you go back towards have the taxpayer funding model.
Yeah.
Whereby you pay, every vote you get $5 and the taxpayers fund it, right?
Yeah.
Yet again, taxpayers will say, well, we don't want to fund political parties either. And I can completely subscribe to that point of view.
Yeah.
Especially when there's that 4% cutoff, whereby if you're a minor party, you get nothing until you get the 4%.
Yeah. So how many votes did you need to get to recoup your
Well, you got to get 4% in every electorate.
44%?
Yeah. So
this is why the voting does matter.
Yeah. So
a point, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the thing. If we got to say 1 million by 2028, and then we've got to make that decision. If we spend that entire $1 million on that campaign and we didn't get the 4%, we might get the 4% in a couple of seats. We'll go back to zero, whereby the major parties will get all that money back.
Yeah.
Right. So if we all start off at zero, with no money in the bank, after the first cycle, if we didn't get the 4%, they get their 30%. They get all their money back. We go back to zero. They start the second cycle with $1 million. It's the end of the second cycle, they've got $2 million. Spend $2 million, they get their $2 million back. We go back to zero. So suddenly, and this is what they've done. They've entrenched the system whereby they get paid per vote.
Yeah.
They're cutting off all the minor parties like ourselves.
Yeah. And they, by chance, were the ones who put through the raising and costs.
Oh, absolutely. So as their primary votes decreased, so this happened when I was in my last term, I spoke out against this and I voted against it. They've increased the dollar per vote from $3.38 to $5. Taking into account their primary votes fallen from 40% to 30%.
Of course.
Yet again. And of course, I also sued the party when I lost my Senate pre-selection because they dodged up the vote there.
Yeah.
The judge who 15 years earlier said that parties' constitutions were justiciable turned around on his own decision and said they were no longer justiciable as parties' constitutions.
Yeah.
So political party, the LNP went to court to say that we don't have to uphold the rules of our own constitution.
Yeah.
Yet political parties are responsible for making laws for everyone else, but they're saying we don't have to be held to account for our own. So yet again, where was the separation of powers where the judiciary should have turned around and said to the political party, no, your job, if you've got a constitution, you need to be held to account for that. Right? Now, this judge agreed with me 15 years earlier. Now, he may have been bound by precedent. I think there was enough of a difference in our case to argue that he wasn't.
Yeah.
But, so now the political parties, and this matters the pre-selection process, because until recently you had 60 seats, so 150 seats in federal parliament.
Yeah.
Until very recently you had 60 safe Labor, 60 safe coalition. So if you got pre-selected in those seats, you were guaranteed to go to Parliament, right? Because, as you know, the Australian public up until recently has been very rusted on. So the ministers come from those safe seats. So if you don't have a proper democratic process within that pre-selection process, the yes men get appointed in those safe seats. They become the ministers and they just become yes men, right? And the party mechanism, we saw this in New South Wales in October 21 when Scott Morrison signed up to net zero. The members of the Liberal Party wanted to get rid of those federal MPs that supported net zero. Well, Scott Morrison and the federal executive told the New South Wales executive not to hold pre-selections. So these people were, and Susan Lee was one of them. She got put back into Parliament with no. She would have lost her pre-selection back in 2022.
Yeah, right.
And of course, what happened then was all the members of the Liberal Party left the party because they were angry at not being able to vote her out. And of course, you saw what happened in the Farrer by-election. Liberals lost by a landslide. They had to pay people to man the boots.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a big swing as well. Like, I'm interested because polling, I don't know how to take polling.
Yeah.
But it's suggesting, again, this is why I'm always raising an eyebrow, why there's such a swing towards Pauline Hanson and the One Nation Party. She's doing very well. And I'm more, I don't think she's the answer, but I look at the whole situation and I just ask why. Like, why has this happened? And it's because we've been lied to for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That they just feel like, it's the Trump example. They've been lied to and they see they've been lied to for so long. We need something else. We just might as well go in that direction. I don't know if she ends up winning or whatever, but the polls are showing doing very well. Why you think? Because I just think it's just lack of transparency, constant lies.
All of that. So the public's very annoyed. In the polling, One Nation were added to the question initially. So initially it was who you're going to vote for, coalition or Labor.
Oh, yeah.
Then they added the Greens. Then they added One Nation.
Okay.
Right. So obviously now you've got an option. So that immediately anyone that wanted to vent. And then what happens is it becomes self-fulfilling. So once you start reporting the polls and you see, One Nation's doing well, people start to follow.
Yeah.
So, and I've had that even.
Well, they did that. Sorry to interrupt. They did that in Mexico, and I only know this because I've been watching Narcos. That they did that. They faked the election results on election day to make people feel like, they're going to lose anyway. There's no point me going and voting, and it changed an election. But it's also, this is far more tactical. This is in the lead up, isn't it? It's it's become self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
If you think people are doing it, you'll vote with them.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's what happened with Zelensky when he was elected. He was a well-known TV celebrity.
Yeah. Comedian.
Comedian who registered his party December 18, I think it was, at the end of one year, and then ended up running in the presidential campaign, for president like 3 or 4 months later. Came second, I think, and then went into the runoff and won it.
Yeah.
Very little political, but if you believe what you read, and take it with a grain of salt, of course. Apparently the polling was what got people, the polling became the news, and then that influenced other people.
Yes.
So, there's no doubt that polling is a way for the media to also control the vibe.
I would also, well, definitely.
Yeah.
But I would also argue there's a certain category of people who even fill out these surveys. Like, I would never fill out a survey. I feel like I'm a very sensible, normal sort of person. You've got to be really fucking passionate.
Well, you get called.
Yeah.
I got called once when I was a senator, and I said, look, I'm a senator, so you probably shouldn't ask me.
Yeah.
But to be fair to those polls, like, they got it right in Farah.
Okay.
So, like One Nation kicked part in Farah, so that was definitely real. And so, yet again, the Nats will be sweating on what happens across the country. So it's a real phenomenon. I mean, I don't think the polls, even though they're definitely influential, there's no doubt that people are looking for an alternative. I agree with you. I think my problem with One Nation is we're setting the new party up to fail. So for those, you may not know this, but One Nation got 13 people into state parliament in Queensland in 1998. Okay. They all left by the end of the term.
Oh, wow.
So my fear is that, yes, people are angry, but what they're going to do is they're going to get out of the car's broken down, and they're basically going to take to it with baseball bats and torch it. Right? That's not the solution. What you need to do is get out of the car, stay calm, lift the bonnet, and fix what's under the bonnet.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than, we often hear people, they want to just burn the whole thing
system.
down.
Yeah.
The problem with that is it's much harder to start from scratch than it is to fix something that's already built.
We also live in the system.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So if you're gonna burn down your own.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is going back to what you were talking about with that patience and long term. This isn't going to be a instant gratification.
Exactly. Yeah. As Charles Darwin said, things evolve, they don't change.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that bit by bit by bit. And that's what we've got to do. And you've got to be able to outline a policy. And we've got that at People First, solutions for today, the vision for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Lift the tax-free threshold to 45 grand. $4,000 back for everyone that works. Pay childcare to the parents, give greater flexibility there, let people keep their superannuation. None of that's going. Well, the tax cuts are going to be paid for by getting rid of subsidies for renewables, means testing defined benefit scheme for bureaucrats, and then believing in the velocity of money for low income earners. They'll spend it all anyway, right? Yeah. And then going back to building infrastructure. Bringing back the military apprenticeship scheme. We need more of our young people on the tools, not at university getting broken, brainwashed. We need more real engineers, not paper engineers. And that fifth one, which is where we actually tax multinationals much more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things we need to do as well, but there's some basic policies there that can just at least, start building the foundation again for a better society and a better economy.
Yeah. What amazes me about people like yourself, or a lot of people in politics generally, is you've been across it all. Like I can for 4 or 5 weeks be on one little part of what's going on, what's in the headlines or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're across the majority of it in quite a lot of detail. Like, I'm sure you'd be across the NDIS stuff, and that's like it's an issue that's pretty important to me.
Yeah.
And it's been completely exploited. So I understand having a bit of a review, the way that they've gone about it, and they're cutting the funding of so many people that so desperately need it. It's kind of like they've fucked up. They made the mistake. They let too many people in and exploit it, and now we're going to actually hurt people who need it. Because my daughter's got autism. She has funding from the NDIS, and we don't. you could argue, well, parents need to foot the bill. You know, it's
Yeah.
their, you know, their kid has an issue, they should be paying for it.
Yeah.
Fuck, man, it's kind of tough when every other part of life is pressuring you financially.
Look, the NDIS, people often ask me, what's your policy for the NDIS? I'll tell them I'm going to run a trial balance. And most people don't understand that, right?
No,
If you're an
explain.
accountant, you would. But basically what we want to do is NDIS should be not-for-profit, right? So we intend to take out the profit section within reason. I mean, look, I understand people work in NDIS are entitled to a decent salary of 100, 120 grand or whatever tops.
Yeah.
But where it is being exploited, right, and looking at things like return on equity and things, and some, you know, we now got private equity looking at NDIS companies, right? That's a red flag, right? Private equity should not be looking at the NDIS as a way of making money.
So as
right?
in like private companies owning or having a company based in NDIS
and
areas.
they're charging a lot more. You know, so they might go and recruit someone to go and deliver the service.
Yes.
You know, and the government will pay that company, I don't know, $150. And like I said, this is why you got to run a trial balance, because you literally got to go through line by line.
Yeah.
And it is not going to be easy. It is going to take someone with an accounting set of very good accountant, forensic accountant, to go in there and cut what I call the profit gouging.
Yeah.
Right, not the front end.
Yeah.
Right, but so it's a bit like the bureaucracy. We all understand how there's a lot more. You know, things are no longer a pyramid where you've got like the front end workers, and then you've got a managerial class, but the managerial class as a percentage of the triangle is very small.
Yeah. What
we've got today is the hourglass, whereby at the top end you've got this top heavy management, right? And as I said on a prior podcast, you know, you could get rid of 75% of the managerial class in this country and you wouldn't miss them, right? And that's what you've got to do is you've got to look for that stuff in the NDIS, just like the rest of all the government waste, where you've got blowhard, bloated bureaucrats in there that are not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? Superannuation industry is another thing. $40 billion on running super.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually produce an iota of anything. All it does is delay people from buying a house sooner and then paying their mortgage off sooner, right?
Yeah.
And it might help a few people, give a bit of an advantage to a very small percentage of people, but a lot more at the expense of a lot more people who cannot get into a house sooner.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, or two education departments. There's so much bureaucratic waste here but yet again, and I mean, you know, it's unfortunate, you know, it's, you got to have those anal retentive skills of sitting down at a desk, going through line by line and just going, righto, what's this? Justify the cost. What's this? Justify the cost, you know?
Well, like, for example, my partner, she's a care worker.
Yeah.
But she does like, not at the moment. We've just had a baby, so we're at home.
Congratulations.
But like, thank you. But she'll have to do overnight care. Like, that's 24 hours. Like, and it's good pay for those sorts of. But she's on she's on the ground level doing the work, looking after the people who need the help. But the people on top are obviously taking a cut.
Yeah.
And that's what you're sort of...
Exactly. And how many people are on top? What's the relationship between the people on the front line versus the back end bureaucrats? And you'll often hear me refer to the bureaucrats, not the public service. So we've got to be careful about our language there, because our teachers and our nurses and our policemen do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They work hard. You know, a lot of people think teachers are bludgers. I mean, I've got 3 children in the education system. You know, just this weekend we had an interview with the teacher on a Saturday. You know, they stay behind, they mark papers, they do all that extracurricular stuff.
Yeah. Well, Delby's a teacher, and he's like, we're just not given. Well, he's not anymore. He's a comedian, but he's just not given the tools. When we have to do so much planning just before we get there, we have to allow for kids with autism. We have to have an individual plan for like 6 different type of people in the classroom. You have to be able to allow for people having issues, learning disabilities. You have to allow for parents, broken homes, all these sorts of situations before you even start the lesson.
Yeah.
And then you got to start teaching. Then you got to do your parent-teacher interviews. Then you got to
exactly.
account to the principal and what they want. Like it's
that's right. So if you're not into the national curriculum and the principal's pushing that down your throat, yet again, you know, you've got all those issues as well. I know a lot of teachers have had that argument over the years, and that's actually one of our policies is we want to get rid of HECS for teachers and nurses.
Yeah.
I think it's completely wrong to be taxing teachers and nurses to become teachers and nurses, right? Like we need our teachers and nurses, right? I mean, my mum was a nurse. She was a shift worker working with the sick and the elderly. Can't be easy, right? No. You know, carrying bodies on your feet all day. And the same for our teachers. They're on their feet all day. You know, you've got children, I've got children. You know, we love them, and you know, it's it's a labour of love.
Yeah.
But you try dealing with a classroom of 25 to 30 people, children, that cannot be easy.
No.
Right? So got a lot of respect for our public servants.
Yeah.
And backroom bureaucrats are another thing. Those guys, they're hammers looking for nails. They create rules and regulations, and they're destroying this country. But we've got to also protect our public service. And the same for the NDIS. Those people on the front line, like your missus who's out there, being a carer, that can't be easy.
No.
Right? But at the same time, where there's genuine waste, and the grifters, there's always grifters everywhere you go.
Yes.
They're the ones we've got to go after.
Yeah. No, that's good. There's other things that I listeners would know. So I just told you, I just had a kid, and we didn't vaccinate.
Yeah.
So we're now in this point where no jab, no play, no pay. Is a thing, and for me, it's coercive. It is the opposite of what we should be doing when it comes to medical interventions. Shouldn't be financially holding this noose over our head that you can choose to do that, but you're not going to get this subsidy from the government. It's going to cost you a lot more for childcare, and you can't go to preschool, and there's so many things that really disadvantage someone who chooses not to vaccinate their child. That seems coercive. Is there any way that we can remove that, or is there any reason why people would think this is fair?
But the only way to remove it is basically turn up and get in a party that's going to remove it. I mean, that's one of our policies. I'm not going to, apart from the COVID mRNA vaccines, which I don't trust mRNA vaccines. I'm not going to go into the quality of every other vaccine.
Of course, yeah.
But our view is you should not coerce. But it's the same for superannuation.
Yeah.
Right? Or you should not coerce. The government should not be coercing personal choice.
No.
Right? That the role of government's to build infrastructure and provide essential services, not tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And, whether it's culture, whether it's a mandatory superannuation, compulsory superannuation, or vaccination, you've got to let people do their own research and make their own minds up.
Yeah. Well, they should be making life easier for us, not making us constantly ask for permission or step through all these hurdles and jump over this, jump over that.
And coming back to that mandatory vaccination thing, the no jab, no play, it's a hide to do that, but then you're not going to disclose the documents when Alex last week asked for the freedom of information on the production of order documents for these mRNA flu vaccine.
Yes.
Well, hang on. Like, I disagree with the compulsion to begin with, but at the very least, if you're going to compel people, disclose all the information related to it, so you know what you're getting people to take. So yet again, it's this whole coercion.
Because the flu jab has been added to the schedule, as far as I'm aware, as well.
Oh, is it? Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's only a recent thing.
So young children, like yet again, I mean, I'm speaking from experience here.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have the flu jab, and turned out all right. I mean, we've survived thousands of years without a flu jab.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I know enough to know this, so I don't like to sort of get too sort of specific about a vaccine, but there's multiple variations of the flu. So unless you're going to jab them for all the mutations of the flu, then it's not really the safe thing to do. And we know from antibiotics, we're told not to overuse antibiotics because the bacteria will mutate around it, right? Even though bacteria, so there's 3 different types of pathogens. You've got bacteria, you've got double-stranded DNA viruses, and single-stranded mRNA viruses, right?
Yep.
For an mRNA virus, and this is what they did in COVID, like those boosters was against the advice. If you base the advice of what we've always been told, don't overuse antibiotics, and bacteria does not mutate easily. Like it will mutate, but over a much longer period of time. Single-stranded mRNA mutates very quickly. We saw that in COVID. Remember, they went from alpha to delta and all these different ones. So interestingly, with dengue fever, they do have a vaccine for that. There's 4 different strains in that dengue fever. Right, and the reason for that is that it's called immune imprinting. That when you get the first strain, if you get a second strain and it's a different virus type, then you'll have a really bad reaction. That's why they give the 4 different doses in one hit. So your body's used to all 4.
And then you feel like shit anyway.
You feel like shit. But with the flu, why would you be giving a vaccine? Like, what strains are they using? And there's one doctor who did know his stuff, said often they're based on the Northern Hemisphere strains, which aren't the same as the Southern Hemisphere strains, because the winter's 6 months apart and they've often slightly mutated, right? So,
well, it's stuff like that is building the distrust in vaccinations, because, like prior to the COVID, I think we were at, and I was reading this the other day, I think we're at about 95% uptake on childhood vaccination schedule, and that's dropped to about 91%. So it's still quite high uptake, but there's about 43% of parents are considering not vaccinating or at least spacing out, or they're very heavily considering whether to do it. They ultimately, like I said, 91% still do it. But if they didn't have to with this no jab, no pay sort of concept they've got, how many people would say no? And
that's right.
is that, I mean, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing doesn't matter. It's more so you are coercing people into making a decision, because so many people are only making that decision based on the fact that they will have to pay and can't afford to for childcare and go back to work.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, it's icky. It's
not right.
It's not right.
And yet again, you know, like, I mean, I got my children all vaccinated. I'm glad it was all pre-COVID, but. Yeah, my eldest son's allergic to penicillin. Now I didn't even know you could be. I didn't even know that was a thing, right? Carl said it as well on his show. He's allergic to penicillin as well. It's all the same thing. Yeah, right. So it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Penicillin, you know, is a widely used antibiotic, high therapeutic index, etc. But yet there's a small percentage of people who are allergic to penicillin. Now. So this is, and now if you didn't know that you were allergic to, and someone said to you, everyone's got to take a penicillin.
Yes.
Everyone would go, well, it's high therapeutic, you know, but there's a small percentage of people that are out there that are allergic to it. So this is another reason why you just can't mandate this stuff, because 20 million people, you know, you can't test for 20 million people. There'd be various sections of the population allergic to this. I mean, my second son's allergic to pecans and walnuts.
Yes.
Right. I found out the hard way one day at the park.
Yeah.
When he had, you know, he was, as you do when you're a little 3-year-old, some other kid opened up his lunchbox and James was right over there.
Yeah.
Had a couple of pecans. Next thing he turned to purple.
Yeah.
And I'm running up to the hospital with the pram because my wife had the car.
Yeah.
But yet again, he's allergic to pecans and walnuts, and my daughter's allergic to nickel.
Yeah.
So again,
biodiversity.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not going to have a bureaucrat dictate to me what can go into my children's arms.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was one of the things that really drove me with taking that stand on COVID, because I was thinking to myself, you know, I know my children are allergic to various, you know, substances or whatever, and I'm thinking other people are, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want my children going into becoming adults and being told they've got to take a jab just to get a job.
Yeah.
Because that jab might have something in it that they're allergic to.
Yeah, well, and my mum is a good example of that. My mum had a genetic predisposition to blood clots. Didn't realise this because she didn't have the genetic testing to find that out.
Yeah.
Ended up having some severe blood clots in her stomach, her lungs, nearly killed her twice. I had to have 2 conversations with my mum to say goodbye because I didn't think she was going to survive the night. Like, no one should have to go through that.
Yeah, was this as a result of the COVID vaccine?
This was the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah,
but my point is that people would argue is like, well, it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, we can probably have a bit of both. Maybe at what point, if you're going to mandate that you have these vaccinations, you should surely mandate. Not that I think any should be mandated, but if you were going to mandate that, you should mandate a genetic test prior to go, right, well, you can't get it. Yeah. So you're exempt.
But here's the thing, it wasn't for the greater good. Right?
Well,
they knew that.
Yeah.
Right. They knew from the year before there was enough of it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yet again, and I've said this, like, I've got no problems with them looking after the sick and the elderly, but you don't destroy the strong to protect the weak.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact of the matter was, most people, healthy disposition, and I got COVID, I wasn't jabbed. You know, it knocked me around for a couple of days, but I came out of it.
Yeah.
You know, this was
solid. I got it. It was solid. Whatever it was, it was a flu, and I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
So.
So anyway, I'm not sure how we got onto that whole, but yet again, it's the whole government, you know, coercion.
Yeah.
You know, digital currency is another concern. You know, like that's going to be that one really worries me a lot.
Yes.
Yet again, this is why we need to keep banks open, bank branches open, access to cash out there. I don't use a lot of cash, but I want it. If I want it, I want to know that I can get it if I need it.
Yeah. The digital currency attached to a digital identity, which is attached to what you're saying and how compliant you're being, like a. Like a fucking social credit system. Exactly.
So which senator in a maiden Senate speech called for compulsory fingerprinting for people?
Who was that? Was it you?
No, it wasn't me.
Pauline? No.
Pauline.
Really?
Yep. She wanted every Australian to go and look it up, 2016 Senate speech.
Well, that's going to upset.
No. The followers will defend it. And I'm telling you, like, she supported the hate speech laws originally.
Yeah. It's always interesting. It's nuanced because I look at someone like a Pauline, and you know, even the way she doesn't go to vote sometimes, which you have had an issue with. Then her argument would be like, well, if I go anyway, I'm no chance. But you raise the point then in another counter defense. Well, at least you get to question and raise some issues. So
But yet again, I mean, I look, this was pre-COVID. I mean, imagine if we all had fingerprinting, biometric digital ID prior to COVID, what they could have done to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. So, yet again, instincts, right, very authoritarian.
So, something you mentioned the other day I seen come up by chance is super. Yeah. Now, I'm interested in this because I've been looking at self-managed super funds.
Yeah.
And I'm just why are they fear mongering the big scare campaign? But maybe actually explain what's going on with the super stuff because I am very interested in what's going on there.
Yeah. Okay. So superannuation is not what it's sold to be, right?
Yeah.
Look, the best self-managed super fund, by the way, is owning your own house outright, just for what it's worth. Okay. So superannuation was originally sold to us by the Hawke Keating government in 1991, August 1991. That was back when the budgets used to be in August. And it became compulsory in 1992, July 1st, where they started taking 2% of people's income. Now, that 2% came out of wage increases, right? So it is in lieu of your wages, right? If anyone tries to tell you it's not, forget it. And I know there's entertainment. You may have come across this already with this new payday super that I know musicians are having their wages docked by 12%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
So, yeah, shout out to all our musos. So basically it was sold that, okay, we can't afford our pension. We're all getting older. So we want everyone to get off the pension. And the way to do that is to make you save throughout your life. Right now, in theory, that's a great idea. But there's a lot of problems with it. First of all, it's not working. So we're now 34 years down the road, okay, and about the same percentage of retirees are on the pension today. On a full pension, I think it's slightly higher than what they were in 1992.
Wow.
There's a small decrease in the number of people on a part pension. That's partly because Morrison changed the indexation, the threshold laws back in 2016. Now the cost of the pension, for what it's worth, about $65 billion a year in the budget. The cost of the superannuation concessions is $61 billion. Most of those tax concessions go to the upper 20% of retirees who weren't going to get the pension anyway.
Yeah.
But the point is it's not working from the point of view that you've still got the same percentage of people on a pension today.
Yeah.
But it costs $40 billion to run because you've got all these financial engineers that, so superannuation funds charge a fee. You've got tax accountants having to organise. You've got employers having to pay separately to your wages.
So just to run it, it's $41 billion.
Yeah, about 1% of funds under management, according to the Productivity Commission. Right, so with $4.5 trillion in super, it's probably 45, let's say $40 billion. And super is forecast to hit $8 or $9 trillion under management by the time 2050.
Yeah.
Now, but here's the most important thing for me, is that the median income in this country is about $85,000. Let's just base it on 80. If you earn $80,000, you'll pay $16,000 tax. That leaves you $64,000. You need about 50 grand to live on. So you can save, say, $14,000. If you earn $80,000. Now, super, 12% of 80,000 is $9,600. So of that $14,000 that you could save, you only get to keep about $4,000 to $5,000 of it. The other $10,000 goes off to someone you've never met.
Yep.
And you don't get that back till you're 67, and there's no guarantee you're going to get it back. Right?
Yeah.
So, because remember, it's not capital guaranteed either. So I'll come on to that one, back to that one in a minute.
Yeah.
So that means if you needed $50,000 to...
Yeah, it's compulsory to do so.
Yeah. So if you need $50,000 to put down a deposit for a house, it means that because of superannuation, if you were saving 14 grand a year, you could do it in 3 or 4 years. Because of superannuation, it's going to push it out to about 8 or 9 years. So it's going to at least double the time it takes you to save for a house. Step one.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the median house price in Australia is $1 million.
Yeah.
They're going up by 5% a year. So you're falling behind by 50 grand a year. Every year you can't get your money into a house and buy a house.
Yeah.
Right? So it's slowing down the time. Now, the second thing is you pay about 6% on your mortgage. That's after tax.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't get a tax deduction for your interest repayment. So you might be earning 6 or 7% in your superannuation fund, but if you've got 10 or 20, 100 grand in your own savings, you've got to earn 10%, pay 30 cents tax on that just to get your 7%. And deduct your 1% management fee, right? So it is slowing down the rate at which you can pay your house off.
Yep.
Now, here's another alarming statistic. 40% of people today retire with a mortgage, right? That is up from 10% in 1992. So and most of these low-income earners, so what are they going to do? They're going to pull their money out of super, pay off their mortgage and go on the pension anyway.
Yeah.
The median balance for women aged 60 to 64 in superannuation is $163,000. To get off a full pension onto a part pension, you need 320 grand. To get off the full pension, you need about 800 grand. Right? Men's median balance is 220 grand. So it's not even shifting the dial with trying to get off superannuation. But here's the other thing, right? If you've got a retail or super fund, by the sounds of it, right, you've got a retail or industry fund.
Yep.
Do you vote for the board of that fund?
No.
No. So they now control $3 trillion in capital.
Yeah.
Right? And if you control $3 trillion in capital, what do you control? Means of production.
Yeah.
Right? So this is your communism coming in, right? But because it's a little bit smart, it's outsourced communism because as per the Constitution, Section 5131, the government takes property from you. They're obligated to make sure you can't lose your capital. So last year we saw some Australians lose about $1 billion in First Guardian. One of those ladies contacted me that lost that money. She was a horticulturalist up in Maloney. She had, I think it was 80 or 120 grand. She had a $200,000 mortgage. She said, Gerard, I'm not I'm not into finance. I'm just a gardener. I'm an outdoors girl. If I didn't have to put money in super, I would have just paid down my home loan. She had a house. She lost all her money in super on First Guardian because she was told to put the money in there. Like she paid a financial planner who advised her to put that money in First Guardian. Right? The government does not guarantee her money. Right, so she has no recourse, and she said, "I'm going to die on this." So she started investigating, and that money went through 5 or 6 sets of hands where they were always clipping the ticket. So go back to NDIS, similar thing.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my Lord.
And it's all paper shuffling, right? So now we've got $3 trillion controlled by people that you don't even get to vote for, right? That now go and appoint people onto the boards of the companies. So now companies, they're talking about DEI and all this stuff. That's because companies now. Yeah, and the other thing, if it's not the industry funds, so the industry super funds use, one proxy advisor, but if it's a retail fund, guess who they use to manage money? BlackRock and Vanguard, right? Yeah. So yet again, the combined ownership of these unelected people that are all yes men, like Lindsay Tanner, Wayne Swan, Greg Cumbo, all ex-Labor politicians. Yeah. I think Nicola Roxon was a member on one super fund. They're now controlling our wealth, right? So they're now, our industry is now controlled by, driven by ideology, not productivity, right? And they're all backing, this green energy that's foreign owned. So we're shutting down our locally sourced baseload energy power supplies for foreign made renewables that are 70% foreign owned. So, and the other thing is what you're doing is if you're from a small town in Australia, and this is an easier example, I mean, if that money, that 12% of someone's income stayed in that local town, that money spends through the economy. Yeah. All you're doing is driving up asset prices of stock market. There's no velocity of money. No. Now, the counter argument will be people will say, oh, yeah, but if it's voluntary super, you're going to drive up house prices. That's a valid point. But the way you counter that is you increase the minimum deposit required for a house. So today it's only 5%. 50 grand will allow you to buy a house for $1 million, right?
Yes, yeah.
Too much, right? We will increase that to 10%. So you need 100 grand to buy a house for $1 million, right? Yeah, the idea being that the extra money from super will go into your house deposit and reduce your leverage. So what we're going to do is we've got, at People First, we've got these targets. Buy a house by the time you're 25, have enough money to buy a house by the time you're 25, have it paid off by the time you're 45, and retired comfortably by the time you're 65. Okay. Right. So by increasing the deposit you need, it limits the amount of money you can borrow. Yes. And what we want to do is actually have people with less debt to begin with. Yeah. Right. But if you can access your super, you can pay your home loan down faster. You can save up for a house faster. You can pay it down faster. And as I pointed out with that 80 grand figure, if you're on less, it's even higher. It's nearly all of your savings goes to super. Yeah. So you'll never save for a house because you can't even get a deposit, right? But what this will do is allow you to get a house quicker because, I mean, I had 7 years traveling the world in my 20s, went to 85 countries, lived out of backpacks and suitcases, loved it, right?
Yeah, well,
do I want to do that at 55? No, thank you,
Yeah.
right? And I can tell you at 75, I want to be in my own house and I don't want to be packing up every year.
No.
But even at our age now, like with kids, you don't want to be renting where you've got to pack up at the end of every year and go and find a new place. If you've got kids at school, you don't want to, so you're restricted by how far you can move. And, so you want people in a house, right? Like, I mean, I often say to people, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And it's neither, it's the nest.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, if you want a happy family life, own your own home. That is the best asset you can own.
Well, there's two things that concern me at the moment in my life. Number one, the increasing speed that the hair's growing out of my ears.
Yeah.
Number two is the future of my daughter and my son.
Yeah.
How are they ever going to fucking get into a house?
Well, that's right.
They're just, unless I overachieve and fucking do exorbitantly well and I can gift them a house or a huge chunk of money, there's no way. I cannot see how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying it's sinister, but it feels sinister. It feels like it can't be stupidity by our current governments.
Originally, look, I think it was a bit of naive optimism.
Okay.
I will go as far as to say I think it is verging on sinister now.
Yeah.
Because mathematically it doesn't work, right? Lower to medium income earners, as I just used that example with $80,000.
Yeah.
I've just demonstrated mathematically, forget the ideology,
Yep.
that it slows down the time you need to buy a house. And if the house prices are growing by 5 or 6% a year, you're falling behind at a rate of knots.
Yeah.
And Labor Party knows this, but of course they're rivers of gold through the superannuation fund, just like childcare, right? They do not want to give it up. And, they are lying when what right does the government have to tell someone that we're going to force you to save for your retirement rather than you put you choose to have a house first.
Yeah.
They're basically denying your right to save for a house.
Yeah.
And for the load. And here's the thing that, superannuation's great for people who've paid their house off and have got excess money, right? Yeah, because they're paying 15 cents in the dollar, whereas if you're, working in a normal job, you're paying 30 cents at least plus 2% Medicare, right? So there's a tax arbitrage there, but that goes to the wealthy.
Yeah.
So all that is doing is making, and I'm one of these people, by the way. I mean, I should not be paying 15 cents in super when, other people that earn less than me are paying 45 cents in a dollar.
Yeah.
Right? It's not right.
No.
So all we're doing is making it harder for young people. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm in Western Australia this week. So I want to give our children the same opportunities our forefathers gave to us.
Yeah.
And as we just touched on, we sold all the infrastructure that our forefathers built for us. We've let the foreigners come in and own all the the industries. I mean, we in the 80s, we introduced the Button Plan where we basically, lowered tariffs and let manufacturing go offshore. And then we've subsidised our kids to go to university and become broke and brainwashed and left them with a HECS debt.
Yeah.
So we've de-skilled them intellectually as well. And not given them the skills to be able to be resilient in terms of their own country. I mean, we can't even build our own dams anymore, right? And now we're trying to even impoverish them more by taking money from them. And there's $4.5 trillion in super all up, about a trillion of that self-managed super funds. But then of the $3 trillion whatever remaining left over, $1 trillion of that's reinvested offshore.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not even keeping the money here and pumping it back into investment here.
Yeah. How does it not feel sinister?
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's our tax system, our energy system, our super system, migration, we have to import. Why are we importing nurses and doctors, right, from third world countries and not training them up here?
Yeah.
And we seem to think that's a good thing. Like seriously, I mean, I would have thought the third world countries need those medical.
Yeah.
And why is it they can train them and we can't? Like, yet again, what's like we've got to start. And yet again, I mean,
something doesn't add up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it does if you think about it. So about 300,000 people each year, children finish year 12 each year. And about 51% of them now go to university, right, up from 20% in the 80s. So if you take 30% of that 300,000, if we took the numbers, the university graduates back to 20%, not 50%, that'd free up another 90,000 people a year, right, young people, to start working earlier so they can save up for a house earlier and back on the tools and things like that, rather than instead of importing them.
Yeah.
So yet again, and then how do we train them? Well, let's and this is our policy. We want to increase the student visa fee, the foreign student visa fee, from what was 2,000, they've just lifted to 5,000 to 20,000 plus, right? So we want to raise $6 billion out of that to actually subsidise paying for the military apprenticeship scheme and do apprentices through the military.
Okay.
Because the reason for that is they'll get free food and accommodation. We'll lower the tax rate, as we pointed out before. So they'll pay $4,000 less in tax, and they will have continuity of employment. So just before I came to this interview, I just read where a property developer in Western Sydney has collapsed. A lot of apprentices have problems finishing their apprenticeship with the same employer they started with, especially if it's small business, because so many of them are going broke.
Yeah.
Right? So our manufacturing industry has been gutted. So we've basically got to step in and just like if you got washed up on a desert island, we have to start building from scratch again.
Yeah.
Because what we do now is with the manipulation of money through the RBA and interest rates, is I say to people, if you got washed up on a desert island, would you pull leaves off a tree and start, bartering the leaves and setting an interest rate on the leaves off the tree? Or would you go and start a fire, look for a water supply, build a house and start, looking for food and cropping, right? You do the real stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what we need in this country is real engineers, not paper financial engineers. And the military, our greatest general was Sir John Monash. He was an engineer.
Oh.
The reason why he basically was one of the key reasons why the Allies won the war was because he used logistics to outsmart the Germans. As I say, the legend has it that he never shot I don't know if this is true, but that's what they say, that he never fired a bullet in battle, right? Good soldiers build, they don't destroy. And remember, they joined the Australian Defence Force, not the Offence Force. If you look at China, they've done a few things, but they're building a military. They're not wasting money on endless wars. No. They're building a very strong deterrent, and that's what we need to be doing here as well. And if we've got the skills and we can start, eventually, I think we've got to get our infrastructure right, but we should be able to, I'll call out Gerard Rennick. Why do we need to invite Israel here to build drones when we spend $20 billion a year on higher education?
Yeah.
We should be able to build our own drones here, right? We shouldn't have to rely on Israel to do it.
No.
And not that we want Israel, to be the ones doing it either.
No, certainly not.
But putting that whole issue aside,
flirting with very dangerous territory.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Might upset a few people, but we want to, we should be able to do this stuff ourselves, and drone technology and all that stuff is something we should be, for all sorts of reasons, not just warfare. It's something we should be able to do ourselves.
Well, I'm very conscious of your time because this conversation's just flown, mate. You did say you wanted to leave about one, but that leads me to maybe one final question. That's a bit more fun. Okay, so sure. I don't know what your opinions on it. We're talking about defense. We're talking about technology.
Yeah.
And you can see I like conspiracies, UFOs, those sorts of things. The UFO stuff and the UFO files that are being released. That's it's not a conspiracy anymore. It's something to be probably taken very seriously, especially when it comes to defense, national security and whatnot. What are your thoughts on this becoming a part of
the zeitgeist conversation?
It's the zeitgeist, the mainstream media. It's becoming a reality. Sometimes I feel like it's all distractions, it's all lights and fucking whatnot. But there's a part of me is like, wow, there is some actual security and defense sort of stuff that you need to worry about. Because some of it's obviously what it seems to be, reverse engineered technology. Are you across much of this and what your thoughts are?
Look, I'll be honest, outer space has never interested me. It just defies logic. Black holes. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong, right, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, look. Yeah, I don't know if there's aliens. It's not. It's honestly a field I've never gone into.
Yeah.
My view is if they were smart enough to get here, we're probably in trouble because they've managed to learn, whatever the forces of physics are to come here and get through, outer space and survive that. So we're probably going to be defeated if they got here.
Yeah. Well, I feel like even if they were, and they were here, we'd be gone by now.
So. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm focused on the here and now.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the political role, I'm here because I want a better future for my children, or our children. look, scientists will be what scientists do. I mean, it's incredible to think, like, if you were in a time machine and you came from the 18th century to now, and you saw someone press a flick on, hit the flick, on the switch of a light.
Yeah.
That would be they wouldn't believe it. Or the idea that you can go through all this technology and you can send, these beams. It is incredible what technology and where technology has got us, right? So,
well, yeah. And I think we're naive to think that there's not potentially, and whether or not they're coming and going or not, but that there's other life forms out there potentially. And if we have that technology.
There's a word for it. There is a theory that the probability, someone came out, the probability of there being life forms in outer space, given that huge size of the solar, the universe, it's probably likely, right?
Yeah.
I think a better question I'd rather tackle, if you hypothetically ask it, is us and outer, out going to the moon and then beyond.
Yeah.
And I mean, they say that it's water. They expect water to run out on Earth in about 1 billion years' time or something. Obviously, huge time frames.
Yeah.
But the idea of humans traveling into space and going further out, I think that's a question.
Well, it has to be something
further than the moon. But then, how do you survive in outer space? So I mean, I've never been into, like I say, even science fiction. I was never a Trekkie or anything like that. I did enjoy Space Odyssey. Because Hal Labot and all of that was quite an interesting.
Well, the AI and stuff in that is.
Mate,
movies are
just a great movie maker. He just had a way of making, and they're slightly offbeat as well.
Certainly.
So not really into the space stuff, but the idea of space travel and how far into the future, because it seems so far removed from where we are today.
Yes.
But then you look at AI even and where we've come. I mean, I look at my parents were born in the 1930s. No TV. I think they had radio back then, and just the technology in the last 100 years. So if that again grows exponentially, where will we be in 100 years' time? That is a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
And how we cope economically with it, socially.
Mate,
who controls this wealth if they manage to go out there and mine metals on Mars or whatever? How will that work? Seems far-fetched now in many respects but yet again, as I said 100 years ago, if you could turn, some of the technology today would have seemed far-fetched, right?
Yeah. Oh, mate. I could talk for hours on this, because it's just so fascinating. Even, for me, I've been watching a documentary series. I think it's called Life. Anyway, it's going through just the planet Earth for the last 4 billion years or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at the dinosaurs or the asteroid or a moment where there was lots of volcanoes, so there's methane in the air.
Yeah.
And they're just, I think it was 5 mass level extinction events throughout the last 4 billion years.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, we're just a fucking blip.
Oh, absolutely. and you know what? We're not just a blimp.
Yeah.
We are living in a slither of a golden age. And this is where I get, people get very pessimistic with politics. And I'm like, guys, we are living in a golden age. We have we've been so lucky to live in this era. We live better today than the kings and queens hundreds of years ago. The toothache would have been, it wouldn't have mattered who you were. Things like a toothache. Hygiene would have been terrible. If you're lucky, you might have had a bath once a week, not once a every day.
We've been so conditioned and privileged that this is our normal, that we don't have that perspective. We don't zoom out and go, we are very lucky. And we have now this fucking device that we see all of this bad stuff when, it's a lot less violent and it's a lot less racist and it's a lot less divisive than it actually used to be.
But
because we see it on here all the time, we think it's more. We think it's happening everywhere all the time.
And you talk about technology. I mean, this is one of the problems we have with being engaged in the community, right? It's not just politics where people aren't engaged.
Yeah.
Right? Like 50 years ago, you would get bored at home because you might have had one radio, 2 radio stations and 1 TV channel.
Yeah.
So you would actually go out and look for interaction.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you don't need to do that anymore because it's all on your phone. I can remember growing up and the cartoons would be on school holidays and that was a real thrill. Now you get cartoons on ABC 24 nearly all day. But here's the thing, kids don't even watch that anymore. They just go straight to the iPad and watch YouTube on that.
Yeah, and then if they don't like it, they go to the next one.
Yeah, that's right. So you get this doom scrolling where you can just change the channel at a blink of a hat, scroll. So, and yet again, talking about technology, the question will be, with these autonomous drones and the warfare aspect, it becomes much easier. Like in the old days, if it was possible that you yourself could be attacked. I mean, this cuts both ways. But, can we keep developing weapons in the way we are and then trust our leadership? Because one thing that concerns me a lot is the complacency today. At least, I'm old enough to remember growing up in the Cold War, and there was an apprehension about, the Russians and starting the Cold War and the next nuclear fallout, right? That was a real fear.
Yeah.
There is a complacency today that concerns me. And you'll often hear, and people talk about Agenda 2030 and it's the World Economic Forum behind it and all that. And I'm like coming back to the intelligence agencies. What concerns me is I've always thought the West's influence is overrated. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's overrated or over exaggerated. But if you want 15-minute cities, start World War III. Keep bombing Iran, cut off our fuel supplies, and you'll get 5-minute cities much quicker than we want, right?
Yeah.
And the scary thing is, we make good money on our minerals now, but what happens if they can't get the fuel? So, I guess, in terms of technology, how does that interact with human nature and, the human condition? Because are we getting more selfish? We are face-to-face very polite here, but you could be another alter persona on social media where you have an avatar. And I'm guilty of this.
Yep.
And they come and troll me, and I'll have to say this one day, I'm not going to apologise for calling someone a flog on X because they're an avatar.
Yeah.
But because there's avatars out there, the whole interaction the dialogue is becoming more debased as well. So, this is an aspect of technology. I would argue, by all means, pursue outer space stuff. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But, how will technology affect the human condition? Just both at the AI, doom scrolling, interacting with other people where we don't use the same manners as you do face-to-face, not getting out and engaging with the community more, calling an Uber to give you an ice cream because you're too lazy to get off your ass and actually go and buy one, and how that impacts obesity, all of that stuff. That I find very, is fascinating. And while you don't want governments to interfere, as I said before, with culture and stuff, it is something that governments are going to have to be alive to because that is going to, impact how we survive in this world. And coming back to, we'll finish up on this. It's impacting politics because there's a lot of anger on social media. And as I say to people, don't spend 2 hours less on social media. You might be 10 hours a week sharing posts and arguing over or getting angry about something. Spend 2 hours less there and go out and interact with the community.
Mate, 100%.
Because you can't change anything on social media.
No.
All you're doing is shouting at a stranger and getting yourself worked up instead of actually, providing a solution. In many respects, social media is also friend and foe. It's like fire. You can be burnt by it to keep you warm, or like water, you can drown in it.
Yeah.
But you need it to survive.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful with technology like social media that it doesn't, turn into this polarizing, we're polarizing tribes and, it's, and as you know, one podcast with me, and then, you lose half your comedian or, audience as a comedian.
Yep.
It's a sad world we live in like that.
Yeah. It's why I'm trying to do this slow burn and just continuously build this thing, which is diverse, and it's not just a niche of politics, or it's not just a niche of conspiracies or sports or comedy. It's
because it is unhealthy, politics all the time. And I struggle with it because I want to get my life back outside of politics. Is it does inevitably become toxic, and you need to, use another part of your brain and remind yourself just how beautiful the world is that we live in.
Oh yeah, that happened to me in New Zealand. Went to New Zealand in February with my partner. She's 6 months pregnant, so she wasn't drinking. I wasn't drinking. Barely touched our phones. Went hiking every day. Didn't even know the Iran thing had happened. And just, see the prices of fuel go up and you're like, oh, I didn't realize. So when you're detached from it all, you're like, well, I'm happy. I don't need to know what's going on in someone else's life fucking on the other side of the world.
And this is the problem with technology. You're getting that news shoved down your throat just about every second of the day. You open up your browser, right? Whereas back in in my youth, you might get the ABC news at 7:45 on the radio and maybe a 6 or 7 o'clock bulletin once at night. And that was the only time throughout the day you'd get the news.
Correct.
The rest of it was all local. Might have been little Jimmy came third at the swimming carnival or,
And you can avoid it.
Yeah.
You just don't watch it.
Yeah.
You could just go, I'm watching The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch the news when you were that sort of in that era.
Yeah.
Now it's just in your algorithm is
Yeah, exactly.
that. Even if it's not politics, it's still divisive and it's just fucking chucked in your face. And then our brains can't differentiate what's subconscious and conscious, so it treats it exactly the same, and we get our cortisol levels spike, and then it's actually creating it's actually manifesting in physical ailments, and we're killing ourselves very slowly by constantly exposing us to this stress.
Exactly, and it is breeding us to be more pessimistic and lethargic. And, you know, we've got to keep reminding ourselves, you know, we are lucky. Stop wallowing in your own self-pity and get out there and, you know, make a better life for your children because we owe it to them. Yeah.
Mate, I think that's a nice way to finish up. There's a nice little message at the end there as well. Anything you want to plug to finish up? Because it's gone for 2 hours, but I could have gone for another 2 hours. It's good. Jump on anytime you want.
Well, thanks for having me on, Cameron. I appreciate it. I know, you know, we got good response from the last time we were on here. So, thanks very much. And, you know, look, obviously, you know, we're trying to, you know, build a movement here that, you know, gives the little guy a say and protects the individual and particularly our family. And you're a new father, well, not a new father, but, you know, another child. So congratulations. But I think you realise that like having children was probably the best thing that ever happened for me.
Yeah.
Look, I had a lot of fun in my 20s. You know, it really sucked the marrow out of the bone of life, but it's given me a new sense of purpose. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that feel the same way. I mean, being a father and a parent is a wonderful, you know, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm determined, like I think you are, to make sure that our children do get those opportunities. So, you know, we want to do that through People First. So if you want to sign up, you know, peoplefirstparty.au, we'd love you to sign up. But yeah, even if you don't want to sign up to us, you know, or even if you don't want politics, get engaged with your school, your sporting association or whatever, and make a difference wherever you can throughout your community, because it's your families and your communities that matter the most.
No, that's a very good way to finish up. Good message, and certainly appreciate that, mate. But listeners, I'm not going to plug anything. So actually, no, I am going to plug one thing. I'm speaking. I'm on a panel that I think you were on the same panel for Kane, is his movie Commonwealth.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. Did you enjoy
seen it? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can't wait. So I'm on the panel for that.
Cool. Yeah.
Speaking here September 5th at Luna Cinemas. So if you want to get some tickets to that, I don't know where to find them. Sorry, it's a terrible plug. But hit up Commonwealth. Have a look at that. Google. You'll find some tickets. Luna Cinemas, September 5th. But mate, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Cameron.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Cheers.
Cheers.